We are live.
Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for April 27th, 2021. As usual, a full agenda. So we'll get going with first of our 4 public hearings this evening. And then we have some other business to take care of after that. If any of you are listening in this evening for the Georgia Pond Aquatic Harvester, that will be later on the agenda after our public hearings. So we'll get going with the first public hearing. I'll read that in now. The applicant here is Deborah Kopinski, and this is a rehearing to consider modification of a 10/08/2019 determination. The lot size and location here is 10,000 square feet at 30 Devon Road, Beach Hampton, Section 1, map number 1203M, Gansett tax map number 300-174-4-11. Description here is to construct a swimming pool with decking and to allow existing decking, a stone walk, a wooden fence, propane tanks, a generator, and 296 square feet of clearing, all established within the benefits of an NRSP, to remain on a parcel containing dune land and beach vegetation. The relief sought is a modification of the zoning board's Natural Resources Special Permit determination filed October 8th, 2019, to allow the pool equipment to be situated under a portion of the proposed decking, to extend the proposed deck over the area where the pool equipment was previously proposed to be situated, and to install a dry well. This is in a B residence zone. The flood zone is X here. The secret class is type 2. And council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
I have an affidavit that the mailing went out on the 13th day of April, and the posting was done also on the 13th day of April. So the paperwork appears to be in order. Okay,
thank you, Nancy Lynn. Okay, this is in my Amagansett excuse me, district. So I did a field report. As you know, board members who were on the board back then, I think all of us besides Ed, I'm sure you know this project, we call this project. The first shot, and Eleni's helping me out here. Thank you, Eleni. This is properly noticed, and you can see they've got the good eco kind of screening there, the protection right there. That's looking at the house from the street, looking at the house in the background. All of the work is taking place on the left side of the photo in the backyard there, or that southern yard. Next, please, Lenny. And I just looked up the street. This is looking up towards Montauk Highway to the north and west. Just give you the character of the neighborhood. Again, they've got the eco fencing on the left, and that's the southern yard on the left side of the photo. And there's the next shot, please, Eleni. You'll see there's kind of nice screening between the street. This is that southeast corner. So there's nice screening between the Devon Road and all the activity going on back there. Next, please. I met the applicants at the house, and Deborah told me that this had already been done. This has been done. It's under the deck here. So we actually opened up one of the 2 doors. There was nothing else really under the other one. I don't believe it was just more access for somebody to get down there and service or check this equipment. So that is actually where, you know, the deck and where it's located on the survey. There's these 2 hatch doors there. Next, please, Eleni. This, I walked over to the west and I turned to the south, where on your survey it says deck to remain, existing deck. You know, this would be that end of the pool, at the western side of the pool, where they hope to extend the decking where the pool equipment was previously approved. You'll see in the background some re-veg there. I'd like to talk to the applicants and to Eleni, I believe. Hopefully that there's going to be some re-veg taking place in this area that is not re-vegged right there along the proposed activity there. Next, please, Lenny. Here, I just turned from that spot. I'm kind of standing on the corner of the pool. I wanted to show you, I'm looking back past those lounge chairs, and before the little outdoor table is where those hatches are in the ground. I just wanted to show you how the re-veg is starting to take here. Next, please, Lenny. And then I spun around, went to the other side, the eastern side of the pool, and looked back at kind of the proposed area there, that's the area I'd like to see re-vegged again once that deck is installed, if this is approved on the western end of the pool. Next, please. And here I climbed down just to show you how the re-veg is starting to work out there. Could use a little patching here and there, but overall, the intent is there, and it seems like it's starting to take hold. Next, please. I think I just turned my camera to the left a little bit just to look at the work area again, and the area I'd like to see re-vegged. Next, please. And then I just gave you one more shot of that revegetation that has taken place up there. And again, the hatches are right behind those lounge chairs. Next, that may be it. I think that's probably it.
That's the last one.
Thanks, Eleni. Any questions, board members, on the field report?
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move on then with the applicant or the applicant's agent, I believe. Do we have Joel here this evening?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, Joel, how are you?
Good. How's everybody doing tonight?
Great.
How you doing?
Great.
Joel, I'll go ahead and swear you in. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I affirm to tell the truth.
Go ahead, please, Joel.
So, I'm just hoping this will be just an open and shut, almost admit, this used to be like an administrative process, a modification. You guys used to do modifications, and you've since changed that policy. So now we're essentially, doing modifications via public hearing, or I'm not quite sure exactly what you're calling them right now. The pool installer determined that the pool equipment, the proposed location for the pool equipment wasn't convenient. It was too close to the pool. So they moved it under the deck. It was proposed under the deck. This was submitted February 23rd. Unfortunately, the pool recently was built, so they had to install the pool equipment at the same time. It just helped with the logistics of everything. So since this has been submitted, the equipment wasn't there. Since it was submitted on February 23rd, I think the pool equipment was installed a few weeks ago. They did not build the deck yet, where the pool equipment was. So right now, essentially what we're doing is we're proposing to install decking over where it would have been structured to begin with. So we're not really increasing anything on the property. We'll be installing a dry well. That's why there's no vegetation you see in that one area.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Once the dry well is installed, we will revegetate that area. And as per the conditions of the ZBA permit, all areas disturbed by construction activity are to be revegetated with beach grass. So any area that's not deemed, revegetated adequately enough, we will have to go back and install plugs of beach grass until we can get a CO for this property.
Okay. Thank you, Joel. Any questions, board members of Joel?
And what's the size of that deck extension that they want to put where the pool equipment was going to go?
Trick question there. I need my scale.
Yeah, it looks somewhere. I'm
Yeah.
5 by 5, I think.
What?
Well, you can see that. Is that a 10-foot dimension from the stake to the pool? So it looks like it looks about 5 feet, right, Joel? Looks
Yeah,
about
you're
half.
right. Oh, yeah.
10. It does look about 5 feet wide, right? It aligns, and then it goes the length of the pool, the width of the pool.
5 by 5. Unfortunately, I don't have my scale in there, but I don't believe it's any bigger than 25 square feet.
Yeah, I think you're.
Again, that square that you see there was a square that was delineated on the previous surveys as pool equipment. So it was proposed to be.
All right, and the dry well next to that on the survey is still going to be the dry well for the pool equipment.
For the pool, correct.
So, yeah, okay. All right.
We didn't have that was one thing went oversight in the previous survey. We did not have a pool dry well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. Nancy Lynn, I wonder on something like this, does it make sense for us to, or board members, how you feel, to do any discussion on this? Or do we maybe not, we just hold off?
We still can't close the
No,
record
we
until-
still haven't heard from the public at all, but I'm just wondering, yeah, okay, let's move along. I'll skip that idea.
Oh, nice try. Thanks, though.
Yeah, what's that? Yeah.
Nice try. Thanks.
Yeah, right. Okay, let's go along. Board members, no questions from you. Let's hear from the planning department. Eleni, please.
Sure. Eleni
Okay.
Nicolopoulos from the Planning Department.
Good evening, Eleni. I'll go ahead and swear you in, please. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We actually really don't have too much to say on this application. It's a very minor change. I'll bring up the previously approved survey. And that same area of deck is exactly the same size where the pool equipment was approved previously. Not too much to say here. That's pretty much it. If there are any questions.
Any questions, board members? No?
No.
Okay, I'll take that as a no. Do we have anyone, Mike, from LTV on the line from the public?
Yes, Chair, we do. I have one caller. I'll let this caller in now in a moment. The last 4 digits of their number are 3545. I'll unmute that. And they hung up.
Yeah. Okay, for those listening,
about
again, that's all right. For those at home listening, we ask that you do not call in for a public hearing until your public hearing is actually being discussed by the board even after the field report has been done, because you have plenty of time to call in. Thank you for that. Okay, so I will, board members, and I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing and to leave the written record open for 2 weeks until after this transcript is posted on the town's website.
Chair, with these
What do we do?
hearings, if you
We don't
want to just keep it open until the meeting after the transcript post, we had discussed that at one point, that we
Okay,
open that time period up. So if you wanted to just keep the record open until the next
meeting after that.
or next ZBA meeting after the transcript post.
Yeah, that sounds great. The
Yep.
more we can move it along, the better. Great. Thank you, Nancy Lynn. So I'll revise that to keep the public record open until the ZBA meeting after the transcript is posted on the town website.
Second,
I'll
I'll
concur.
concur. Who's going to keep track of that? Is that Kyle?
And Lenny would.
I keep track of that. That's,
okay.
that's my job, to keep track of timelines.
Okay, great. You do a great job with yours. Thank you, Nancy Lynn.
you keep track of us all too.
So thank you all. Joel, have a good evening, and we'll move
Have a great
along.
night, everybody. Good night.
Take
There you
care.
go.
Okay, next we'll go to Gregory Buhay is our next. This is again as a rehearing to consider modification of an 11/18/2020 determination. And the lot size here again is 10,000 square feet at 15 Jackson Road, Montauk Beach, map 1312, Montauk tax map number 300-70-4-17. Description: to demolish all existing structures and construct a 2,421 square foot residence, 555 square feet of decking, 260 square feet of swimming pool, sanitary system and driveway on a parcel of, and driveway on a parcel of within 150 feet of wetlands setbacks, freshwater wetlands. The relief sought here is a modification of the ZBA's natural resources special permit determination filed 11/18/2020, updating the approved survey and sanitary plans. This is in the B residence zone. The flood zone is X. The secret class is type 2. And council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
I do have it here. Hang on just a second. I have reviewed it, and I can't give you the exact dates and that.
Yeah, I
Here
reviewed
they are.
it.
I'm sorry, I do have it. On the mailings were done on the 16th day of April, and the posting was done on the 16th day of April. So the paperwork appears to be in order.
Okay, thank you, Nancy Lynn. Okay, this is in Terry's Montauk District. Terry, did you do a field report here?
I did an abbreviated field report
Yeah,
because
good.
nothing has started yet on this project. I wanted to make sure it was noticed. And
Yeah,
it
thank you.
was noticed. I only took 2 other shots, one of the house, the front of the house from the street.
Mhm.
And that's not it. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
That's from the street side. The entrance to the home is actually on the right. And the next shot shows you that I stood in the area where the septic system is planned to go, to show exactly, with the change. The modification is very slight. There's a retaining wall that's going in with that sanitary system upgrade,
Mhm.
and the extension pool per Suffolk County Health Department. They asked that that last section, the expansion, be turned perpendicular 90 degrees so that it meets 5 foot away from the wall. And that's it. I didn't take any further pictures. There's nothing else has changed.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Lenny
Any
has them.
questions?
Somebody wants to see them.
Yeah. Any questions, board members?
No.
No? Okay, I see we have Billy Hajic is with us. Good evening, Billy.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. I'm Billy Hajic on behalf of Greg Bouye, the property owner and applicant. So,
Thanks. Billy, I'll swear you in real quickly, Billy, if you please. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
yes, I do.
Great. Go ahead, Billy, please.
It's a very simple request. We are required by the health department to pivot the expansion galley 90 degrees. It doesn't change any setbacks to the wetlands. In fact, it doesn't really change anything about the project. We simply had to pivot the expansion pool 90 degrees to meet a 5-foot separation to a decorative stone wall. That's really the extent of it. I wish I was asking for more to get Greg's money's worth, but this is it.
Okay, thank you, Billy. Any questions, board members? Terry,
I
especially?
guess just the revised surveys, January 28th, 2021, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. And there was also a new septic plan. Did the date change on that one?
It will be revised or updated February 3rd, 2021.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's hear from the planning department. Eleni is with us again.
Yes, Eleni
Thanks.
Nikolopoulos from the planning department. We don't have much to say on this one either. It is just a slight pivot. There's not much of a change to the application overall. If there are any questions,
No
I can show you
questions.
the approved survey. This is the approved survey. This is the leaching galley here.
Yeah.
For the, and this is the proposed where it's just pivoted.
Thank you, Eleni. Any questions, board members?
No.
Okay, Mike from LTV, anyone in the public wishing to speak?
No, Chair. There are no callers at this time.
Okay, thank you. Terry, would you like to make a motion, please?
Sure. So for the application of Gregory Bouye at 15 Jackson Road in Montauk, tax map 300-70-4-17, make a motion to close the public hearing and to leave the written record open until the next meeting after the transcript posts to the website.
Thank you.
Second. Great, Tim got the second.
I concur.
And Ed concurs, right? And I concur as well. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Billy. And thank you, Eleni. Have a good evening, Billy.
Thank you, board. Have a nice night.
Take care. Okay, next we'll move on here. We have Robert Woolcott as the applicant. And this lot size and location is 46,005 square feet total at 42 Oyster Shores Road in Hampton Waters, Section 1, map number 2799 East Hampton, tax map number 300-92-6-23.3. Description is to construct a 10 square foot generator and an outdoor shower and to allow an existing rollout walkway to remain on a parcel of land containing tidal wetlands. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit, and 5 variances are required. 2 variances from 255-4-40 wetland setbacks of 85 feet and 75 feet are required to allow the construction of the generator 15 feet and the outdoor shower 25 feet from tidal wetlands where 100 feet is required. 1 variance from 255-11-10 dimensional setbacks of 28 feet is required to allow the generator to be constructed 2 feet from the front property line where 30 feet is required. 1 variance of 35 feet is required to allow the clearing 15 feet from tidal wetlands where 50 feet is required, and any other relief necessary from East Hampton Town Code. This is a B residence zone, flood zone X, secret class type 2. Council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
Second, I apologize. I'm doing 2 things at once.
All right, that's all right. We can.
This is on Woolcott, and I have an affidavit of mailings on the 9th day of April and posting on the 9th day of April. So the paperwork appears to be in order.
Thank you, Nancy Lynn. Okay, this is in board member Brenneman's East Hampton District. Tim, do you have a field report, please?
Sure. I started off with, I have to say I wasn't trying to be mysterious with my first photo, but apparently I was just getting warmed up. So I can report that the property was appropriately posted, even though I did not capture it as such. User error.
We trust you.
Yeah. So the board will, many on the board will remember that this property was in front of us in 2018. And so this may look familiar, I think, to the majority of the board. Eleni, if you would advance, please. So now I've walked in and I've turned to the east of the property. This, if you look at the survey, I'm looking over the new IA system. This is roughly where that is in the front of the property. You'll also notice directly in front of us in this photo is the beginnings of revegetated area, and then beyond that would be wetlands. The board is familiar with Oyster Shores Road. In this property in particular, it would be characterized by sloping terrain. Much of the terrain runs into wetlands and into 3 Mile Harbor. And in this property specifically is particularly challenged, as I think 70% of the entire property is wetlands. So that's kind of the issue here anytime we visit this property. Next, please. So I've now am facing basically south, and this is just where the generator is placed today. This is not its permanent location, but it's waiting to be connected. But I took a snapshot of that, and that's looking back up toward Oyster Shores Road. Next, please. Now I've walked over to the connector here, and essentially, as I understood it, I did meet with the applicant on the property, who was nice enough to show me where approximately they were requesting to place the generator, and it would be in this area. And the next photo gives a little more perspective. So now I've just turned basically northwest, and I'm looking across, and you can start to see the cove that heads out into 3 Mile Harbor here. And I believe it's the second tree back, not the one that's dominant in this photo, but the second tree back is where the wetlands kind of begin here. Next photo. Now I've walked to the back of the property, so I'm north, just a shot out over looking at 3 Mile Harbor, a beautiful area, of course. Next photo. Now I've walked over, you can see on the survey that there is a platform, and there was a reference to the rollout stairway in the TAM, and I captured a quick shot of that. Next photo. Now I've turned back facing south, back up toward the property. And I took this photo and the next one of just a quick shot of the deck. It's not part of this hearing, but the board will be considering an extension of time request associated with an administrative issue attached to that deck later on this evening. So I thought it would be helpful to show that. And then the last photo, Eleni, again shows the span of the deck, which I believe was the original deck that was attached here. And I believe that's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Board members, any questions on the field report? Okay, let's go then to the applicant. Do we have the applicant with us here, or the agent?
Yes,
There we
the
do.
applicant is here.
Good evening to you both. If you want to, you're the applicants. If you want to just introduce yourselves, and if you're not an attorney, I will swear you both in, okay?
Rosalind Woolcott.
And
Robert Woolcott.
Great, okay. Nancy Lynn, can I swear them in together? Is that legal? I'm not sure.
You can say it once as long as they respond separately.
Okay, great. Please raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And I do too.
Okay, good evening. Go ahead, please.
I'd just like to point out a couple of things from the TAM that we think are not exactly accurate. It says that the wooden platform was removed and then put back following inspection. That's just inaccurate, and that has never happened. In fact, you can vaguely see it in this aerial shot that's on the computer right now. It's anyway. The other thing is that it says that we would like to clarify the phrase self-created hardship regarding the high efficiency septic system that we put in. We put that in obviously to reduce groundwater pollution leaching into the harbor. The old septic was literally a tin drum 20 feet from the shoreline. The new system could only be placed where it is right now because of all the wetland setbacks. And it says that we actually moved it in the TAM, which we didn't. It's exactly where it should be based, maybe 2 feet here or there, but it's where it was based on approvals from Suffolk County Health Department. And we actually looked into moving it where the original driveway was, but we were told by both Natural Resources and the Zoning Board that that would require even more variances moving the driveway. So we abandoned.
We had no choice. We had to leave it where it is now. Yeah.
Okay, we can have the planning department comment on that. So you can go ahead, please.
Okay, so what we're requesting basically is a generator, which is an above ground 5 by 2 feet plastic encased generator. It's a
propane
powered, so there's no oil or anything that can leach into the ground. It's a 10-foot square area of ground that it will cover, and it's our belief that if we put it near to the gas line, we'll be disturbing where the gas comes onto the property. We'll be disturbing less ground and less natural vegetation than if we move it closer to the house. It is a very restricted area just because of, first of all, wetlands is to the right of the area that we want to put it in. The new septic system is to the left of where we want to put it in. And if we go forward towards the water, we're getting closer towards the shoreline, which is getting closer to wetlands. So really the sort of only place to put it is that sort of point on the corner where the town meets our property.
Right, and just to clarify, in the front, we had to put in these 40-foot leaching pools, which literally occupy the entire front yard because the water table is at 4 feet.
Yeah.
So a quick question for you, just to confirm what we have in front of us. Can you confirm that you've removed the outdoor shower in the roll-up wooden walkway from this application? So you're no longer requesting that as part of this?
Well, we wanted to talk to you about it. We have no problem taking the shower away or the roll-up, but we're hoping to keep the roll-up just because it's very practical. If we don't have the roll-up, I know we're allowed to have a 4-foot stretch of walkway to the beach, but what would that be made out of? Would we put gravel or rocks, or what? How would you propose that would be, a walkway area? What would you put down instead of a roll-up wooden slatted device?
That would typically be a naturalized area, just a footpath out. is.
And what is a footpath made of? Sand? What would you call a footpath? We don't want to do the wrong thing. If the wood's going away, we need to know what we can put back there so we can get to the beach.
I would think it's sand typically, but we can have Eleni comment on that as well when she speaks, okay?
Okay, great. And then the other thing with the outdoor shower, the plumbing was removed already. It's gone. We didn't know it was illegal. It was there when we bought the house. And we have built a small enclosure, which we're actually using for storing sort of outdoor furniture and chairs at the moment. But it's basically used in the summertime for just getting changed and putting on a bathing suit. So we're hoping we can keep that structure, which is on top of where the original deck was. It's not a new footprint. There's nothing new to it except that it has three-dimensional sides on it.
Chair,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm just a little concerned. This hearing is not noticed for those items.
I'm sorry, the word?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the shower was illegal and we didn't.
I mean, Nancy Lynn, go ahead. Nancy Lynn.
Not noticed for these items. The only thing that was requested in this application is the generator, and we have to give public notice as to what your application is. So your application is the generator. If you
Yes.
want other items, you will have to bring a separate application.
Okay, well, we could do that. That's fine.
Well,
We'd be willing
let's
to.
just move, yeah.
But yes, right now it's the generator that we're worried about.
It's only the generator and the walkout is on your application now, the rollout walkout path.
Well, the shower is as well, I think.
It says outdoor shower.
There's outdoor shower on.
Oh, it does, I'm sorry. I beg your
So
pardon.
Figure on there.
we have, all right, so,
Yeah,
all right, so let me just double check the notice here that we have.
So you've removed
I think-
the outdoor
can I just make a
shower and
second?
you want it to be an enclosure.
Yeah, may I speak for a second? I think the issue with the outdoor shower really was the worry about the runoff of the water and how it would drain. And we agree with you. I think, prolonged showers out there would be difficult. So we don't need the plumbing, but we're hoping to just keep the enclosure so that people can get changed or. And it's already been built. To knock it down seems a shame. So that's all.
All right, it is noticed, I think, because it was on your original application, and I think the notice went out for the original application. So this is an application for a natural resources permit and all 5 variances.
yeah, okay. Yeah, it's on our agenda and notice that way anyway. Okay, so let's hear from the planning department, then we can always.
Well, go ahead. Maybe my
Oh.
question is more for the planning department, but I'm curious about the renovation. The permit was for an interior renovation. It appears there was extensive exterior work done, windows, siding and stuff like that, which my question would be, shouldn't that have triggered an NRSP?
No, because
We replaced-
the cedar shingles were 40 years old, and we called the building department and they said, as long as you don't remove the sheathing, it's okay. So what we did, we put stucco on the exterior to replace the 40-year-old shingles.
Did you change windows?
We replaced in kind. So where we had windows before, we put new windows in, yes.
Okay,
the building
I'll ask the
department
planning
said
board
that-
that same question, but okay.
The
thank
building
you.
department said that was acceptable. They gave us permission to do that.
Okay.
Because we did ask them that question and they said, don't cut the outside of the house, don't add anything, don't increase square footage. And we said,
Don't
we're
touch
not,
the foundation.
all of that stuff.
And you use the same openings for the windows that were there? You didn't reframe openings?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
do you know if the irrigation was removed from the wetlands?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And we were told to irrigate the front section, the back section where the water is for 1 year because of all the new plantings.
Yeah, as long as, that's a temporary solution.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's been removed now too.
Okay, let's move along. Well, thank you for that. Let's hear from the planning department next. Eleni, if you would, please.
Eleni Nicolopoulos from the planning department. So start by saying that the planning department considers this to be a poor candidate for the requested variances. The generator is proposed in a poor location considering the constraints of the property and its proximity to the wetlands. So if you can see on the survey here, this where my cursor is, that's where the proposed generator is, and it's 15 feet from the wetlands. The property is among the most developmentally constrained and environmentally sensitive along Oyster Shores Road. In addition to the wetlands located along the shoreline, the eastern portion of the property contains substantial coastal pond and associated wetlands that comprise a significant portion of the property. So this is all in here, and that's all scenic easement. The wetland ecosystem in 3 Mile Harbor is rare and provides an important habitat for a large variety of fish and wildlife. The clearing of vegetation. So this application is also to clear the area where the generator will be placed, because this is a vegetated area currently. And we'll state that the clearing of vegetation and placement of any structure within setbacks from a wetland poses a threat to that wetland by increasing the risk of pollutants degrading the wetland system. The vegetation adjacent to a wetland is important in creating a buffer to pollutants entering the wetland, stabilizes the soils, decreasing runoff into the wetland, and provides a layer of protection for aquatic wildlife. So that's really why we're saying that, any structure within variance jurisdiction really needs to be looked at carefully. And there do appear to be locations on the subject property where this generator could be located. In addition, the planning department does not agree with the clearing of an area to place a generator, as there are more conforming locations within the already cleared areas of the property. Overall, the planning department would like to state that the request for a generator on this property is not unreasonable. However, there do appear to be more appropriate locations. We would suggest locating it closer to the house, kind of anywhere along adjacent to the house over here in this area would be a better location. It's already cleared and it is further from the wetlands. Any place on this property would require a variance. However, placing it closer to the house would be a lesser variance and would be more favorable for the environmental conditions. One statement about the platform. We don't know that it was removed and replaced. We're not saying that. However, the applicants were made aware that the platform was not legally existing in the prior 2018 application, and it still remains on the property now. And in the question about the footpath is just natural. It's just a path that is 4 foot wide. It can be cleared 4 foot wide of vegetation to allow access to the beach, but it would be nothing would be placed there. No gravel, no nothing. And if there are any questions?
I have one quick one, just to touch back on the survey. I mean, the sanitary, was the sanitary put where it was approved by this board? Or within 1 or 2 feet?
Didn't have, this was a voluntary
No,
thing.
I'm asking Eleni, Robert, right now. Eleni,
So,
please.
The application that came before the zoning board in 2018 was withdrawn prior to a determination. Where they had proposed it was over in this area.
Wait,
the area of the driveway. That's where it was previously proposed in 2018. It's in the overall general location where the sanitary system had previously been located. However, we don't really see that the sanitary system being here would be an issue for the applicant to put the generator in any of these locations over here. That's
right. And those are AC units, I believe, right up by the house there already, correct? AC
yes,
units.
AC units.
Yeah.
May I just jump
Okay.
in a second?
Sure. Go ahead.
Surely by moving it towards the house, you're moving it towards wetlands, you're getting 30 feet closer to the harbour.
The
But
wetlands are right here.
Well, the wetlands are all in front of the house too. So if you're moving it toward you're moving it slightly further away from wetlands on the right, but you're moving it 30 feet closer to the wetlands in the front.
Right. So you've got a house between you and the wetlands there.
It's a substantial variance. I have a concern, Mr. Chairman, and
Yep.
I think that if we're looking at this application now, I think I think we should be making sure that the property in its entirety comes into compliance. I'm not sure how we deal with that platform if it's not legal. But I would be looking to bring this entire property into compliance.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
We do have an extension of time later, and we can touch in on that as a possible condition or something. Roy, or Tim, do you want to comment, Tim?
Yeah, but I think you're right, John, that I think that's a better nexus to the extension of time than it is necessarily with this one.
Mm-hmm. But I appreciate your concern, Roy. I think the whole board shares that concern. Okay, I think let's go to the public. Mike at LTV, anyone in the public domain there?
No, Chair. There is one person on hold, but I've been instructed by council that they're for the next application, so there's no one else.
Okay, thank you. I think we can kind of wrap up here, unless the board members have any questions.
I have a question. In the TAM, it does say that the applicant said they will remove the platform. So, and that it was not noticed for any variance on a platform. So you will be removing that platform?
I think it's something we can consider, definitely, yes.
Well, I
I think
believe
it's more than, go ahead, Nancy Lynn.
we do have an extension of time, and since the applicants are still on the line, it might be appropriate, because generally this board, when there is a request for an extension of time and there is a nonconformity that exists, this board generally gives the applicant an opportunity to remove that nonconformity before they decide on the extension of time. Because if they deny the extension of time, that approval actually becomes null and void. So and this board will not, it generally does not, I won't speak for the board, but generally does not approve extensions of times when there's a nonconformity such as that. So it may be in the best interest of the applicant to withdraw their request for an extension of time and ask for it to be put on a subsequent meeting after they've brought it into compliance, so that they're eligible for that extension of time, and not have that on tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Nancy Lynn, for that. And if you too understand that, because just to reiterate, if we were to deny your extension of time this evening because of this non-compliance, as Nancy Lynn said, it kind of null and voids the NRSP that you have. So it would certainly behoove you to
remove the platform.
To remove the platform, and then you could come back. If you think you could get rid of it in a week, we could put you on the agenda next week. If you think you need 2 weeks.
Yes, grab hold of a sawzall, will be gone tomorrow.
Well, it's also going to have to be revegetated.
Yeah.
There is no vegetation there. It's the beach.
I think we should look at continuation of the vegetation. There's a
sure.
Yeah, where the void is. Sure. Okay, so why don't we, even though, let's close this out and we'll pick this back up. But just so you don't have to spend the whole night until your application, I would recommend, what we're probably going to do is take this path and recommend that tomorrow you give Eleni a call, and she can kind of give you an update, or you can go back on LTV and rewatch our discussion. But it was good that, thank you, Tim and Nancy Lynn, to bring this up now while you're on the, on the air with us. So that's probably what will transpire later in the evening, and you're welcome to stay at home and enjoy the show and watch it on LTV. Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, before we move forward, I just wondered if the applicants have any comments on the proposed relocation of the generator.
Yeah.
The planning department has made that recommendation. Our board makes these decisions based on standards, and NRSP standards really require that we locate things like this upland as much as possible, that we minimize clearance. And so there are areas on the property. I wondered if there's a willingness on your part to consider that.
Well, may I ask a question? The clearance that you're worried about is a 5 foot by 10 foot square, and it's an area that we revegetated of our own volition. We didn't have to. We decided to do it. We gave back some of our property to natural resources and state, and not to the department, but to the natural vegetation. If I replanted, further up nearer wetlands, an area that was 5 by 2 feet, would you be willing to allow me to put it where it is so that I can revegetate an area somewhere else. Because the one thing you can't see on the footprint of the house.
I think I can say, just so we don't go too far down this path, we don't really kind of negotiate that kind of a thing. I think the key here is you're coming before us. This is your application. We're not going to, Tim makes a very good point. He's trying to just get your sense of it to possibly keep things moving along.
Can I
Because,
just finish my point?
well, as long as it's focused on Tim's question to you, go ahead.
It is. You're trying to suggest that we put the
AC
unit near the AC units. Unfortunately, where you see the 17.6 marked on the survey, that's actually a double French door. That's glass, and it's an exit room. It's a security exit room from that room, so there's no room on that wall. Then you have the 2 AC units. Then that's our front door right there, which is the egress to the house. Then next to that, there's another glass window where the 13.7 is. So logically and aesthetically, there really is no way to put it unless we put it in the middle of the lawn.
Right, but the problem here is this is not
Yes.
just an NRSP. This is an area variance, and an area variance is nearly 100% variance, and which that's extremely substantial. So there needs to be a nexus for being able to approve this. So
I don't quite
it's up to
understand what you
you.
mean.
Okay. We spent quite a bit of time on this here. What this is, and I appreciate Roy's comments. If it's, this is what you're coming before us with. We listen to you, we listen to the planning department, and we will make our decision. Okay. And board members, anything else? Any comments or questions, board members?
Can I just ask a question, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
In the notice I'm reading, it does say there's a request to construct a 10-foot generator and outdoor shower, and Nancy Lynn had instructed that they were not asking for that at this point, so therefore it couldn't be discussed. Am I missing something here?
Yeah, we discussed that. You might have missed that, but we were saying, yes, it was in fact noticed, Ed.
Okay,
Yeah, we discussed that earlier. It was in fact noticed.
thank you. I thought you said it wasn't. Okay.
Yeah,
I did, and
you did it
I
first. Yeah.
I updated that.
All right, thank you.
But thank you. Okay, anything else, board members?
No, I'm good.
Okay, Tim, would you like to close us out if you please, Tim?
Sure. So in the matter of Robert Woolcott at 42 Oyster Shores Road, East Hampton, tax map number 300-92-6-23.3. I make a motion to close the public hearing and to keep the written record open for 2 weeks after the transcript posts to the town website.
No, actually, this is where we go, Tim. We go to the next meeting.
No.
Oh, this is separate. I beg your pardon. It's not my fault.
I was reading sign language, John.
Yeah, your motion stands. I'm sorry.
And I'll second it.
A second for Tim?
I concur.
Second it.
And I concur as well. Thank you, Tim, and apologies again. Okay, and thank you, applicants, for being here, and thank you, Eleni.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay,
You.
hey, take care.
You too.
Okay, we'll move along next with our next public hearing. The applicant here is Leanne Jody Hinchin, and the lot size and location is 22,948 square feet, or 948.1 square feet, at 25 Seaside Avenue, Seaside Shores, Block 600, Lot 4, map number 1518 in Montauk, tax map number 300-32-4-37. Description is to construct a 320 square foot covered rear deck, a 120 square foot rear deck with stairs, and a 102 square foot concrete areaway to allow an existing garden to remain, existing clearing to remain, to allow an existing and proposed deer fence to remain and be constructed, and to relocate an existing 900 square foot shed on a parcel of land containing freshwater wetlands. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-4-20 of the East Hampton Town Code, and 6 variances are required for this application. Variances of 50.7 feet, 45.9 feet, 88.5 feet, 35 feet, and 100 feet are required from 255-4-30 of the Town Code. In order to construct the proposed covered deck, not 49.3 feet, concrete areaway 64.1 foot. Existing garden, 11.5 feet. Relocated shed, 65 feet. And deer fencing, 0 feet from freshwater wetlands where 100-foot setbacks are required. One variance of 45.5 feet is required from 255-4-30 of the town code in order to allow the existing clearing to remain approximately 4.5 feet from freshwater wetlands where a 50-foot setback is required and any other relief necessary. This is in a B residence zone. The flood zone here is X and the secret class is type 2. And council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
We have a affidavit that the mailings went out on the 16th day of April and the posting was done on the 16th day of April. So the paperwork appears to be in order.
Okay, thank you, Nancy Lynn. And this, I believe this is in board member Ed Johans, Montauk District. Is that correct, Ed?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you. If your field report, please, Ed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the first photo I took of the notice posted right out at roadside. Next. This is a dirt road, and it comes off of Montauk Highway, approximately opposite Westlake Drive. It extends down, has a number of residences, and I know it's been before the board for consideration on the lots. Here we're looking south towards the ocean. It goes on, and you can see driveways for other houses. Next. Here we turn, we're looking north, back towards Montauk Highway. You see an enormous stand there of bamboo, which is quite obvious as you come down the road. Next. I just took a picture of the bamboo to just see how impressively it can get away from people when they plant it. Next. This is looking at the front of the house, standing at the road, looking at it. That's basically all of the discussion is going to be taking place behind the house, but this is set back, and it's a pretty well existing structure that's been here before. It's been recently purchased in 2015 or changed hands on. Next, please. This is looking down on the south side of the house. We're looking towards a shed that's in the back. You see some surfboards there. Property line to our right. Next. This is down now on the north side of the property. I'm looking back again. In the distance, you'll see an enclosure, which is a garden, which is up for discussion. That's one of the questions here that we'll be considering because it's relative proximity to wetlands. Next. Here we are standing with my back to the building. You see the shadow cast. I'm looking back towards the wetlands, which exist beyond that shed, basically, off in that direction. The garden is to the left, and that shed that was now proposed to be changed, sitting to the right. The land here slopes. You'll see it on the map, on the survey. Slopes from fairly high hillside, working its way down into the wetland, which is pretty much there and extends all the way up towards the highway, towards Montauk Highway. Next. This is the back of the house. Now, the proposed deck would be to your left. Yeah, that's right, to your left, where Tyler's working that arrow. And then there will be this proposed staircase down to the lower level in that area. We're showing the arrows. These are two of the considerations we'll be talking about this evening in the hearing. Next, please. This is just looking back at the house coming from that corner. This would be the corner there. We see a leader coming down right now to a pipe that's just running out onto the ground. And of course, that would take off, that deck would take off and move to our right from that corner. Next. This is a shed that is now sitting in an area that is proposed, and you'll see it on the survey, to be revegetated as a buffer into the protection to the wetlands. However, this is an area that was over-cleared to begin with, so that's an important consideration for us when we talk about how that is in any way remediation. Next. This is a close-up of the garden here. It's enclosed, it's fenced to keep deer out. And again, I think we see that it's looking for, this is looking for a rather large variance. It's the wetlands. You can see that the hillside starts up on the left. That's all their property. But to the right, down lower, is where the wetlands begin. Next. Here I'm standing there. You can see right in the left corner I'm looking at the garden. The hills are moving up in front of me. I'm looking now basically to the northwest, and you can see there's a hillside there with a significant amount of native vegetation on it. Next. Now I've turned the other way and I'm looking, and you can see as you look past this cherry lowlands in the back, this is the wetlands primarily that sits to the southeast of on the parcel and on the adjoining parcel. Next. I'm just looking back at the house here, and this is again the area where we'd be seeing this deck going in. So it's the major discussion about what's going to be being asked for in terms of addition to the structure is taking place right here. Is that my last one? Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Ed, board members, any questions for Ed? No? Okay. We will go ahead now to the applicant's agent, Lori. Good
I'm
evening,
here.
Lori.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Great. Lori, do you swear? Go ahead and introduce yourself, if you would, please, first.
Sure, Lori Wiltshire with Land Planning Services, representing Stuart and Leanne Hinchin.
Chair, I also
Thank you.
believe we have Mr. Hitchin on the phone.
Oh, okay. Okay, I can swear him in when he speaks, but I'll swear Lori. Lori, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, or nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Do you want to swear in? Is Mr. Hinchin going to speak this evening?
He wasn't intending to, but
Okay.
I told him to be on, be ready to
Well, that's fine.
comment.
Yeah,
if you have
that's
questions.
right. Go ahead, Lori.
So this is a very modest project, which has been substantially scaled back from the original proposal. The owners are sympathetic with and sensitive to the environmental concerns expressed in the TAM. In a revised plan, the shed near the wetlands is to be removed entirely and not relocated as a standalone structure. The proposed walkway outside of the bedrooms has also been removed, and the cellarway turned parallel to the house to allow a greater separation from the wetlands. The organic garden remains and poses no threat to the wetland. The owners have proposed a substantial scenic easement over the wetlands to the rear and a 25-foot buffer of native plantings adjacent to the wetlands south of the scenic easement, with a revegetation plan to be approved by the board. They have proposed gutters and leaders for the covered deck to match the existing with appropriate catch basins to be installed. Sediment control fencing would also be installed before construction commences. So the TAM contains two very significant errors. One, the house does not sit 32 feet from the wetlands, but rather 62 feet from the nearest wetland. And two, not all of the wetlands in this area of Montauk are rated Class 1 by the DEC. In fact, the letter of non-jurisdiction freshwater wetlands dated January 16th of 2020 from that agency specifically states that the wetlands on the north side of the property are not New York State regulated freshwater wetlands. The wetland system to the south of the property across the street are in fact New York State regulated Class 1 freshwater wetlands. But because the proposed construction is over 100 feet from that system, the DEC considers this project a matter of non-jurisdiction. It should be noted that all of the variances requested are on the north side of the property as far as possible from the Class 1 wetlands across the street. The TAM also states that the proposed decking has the potential to have adverse effects on the environmental conditions, but it does not say how. The TAM proposes an alternative that the decking be placed on the northwest side of the house in a concession, recognizing that it is reasonable for the owners to request the decking. However, the TAM proposal would place the decking off the bedrooms and the bathroom rather than an outdoor living dining area off of the existing kitchen. While the TAM concession is appreciated, the impracticality of the alternative proposal is obvious to all of us. Assuming the project is built without treated wood and has gutters and leaders that lead to dry wells, preventing runoff into the wetlands, then the adverse effects to the wetlands would be avoided. The planning department should explain if they see otherwise. The existing deer fence was removed by the applicants as requested in the TAM, and a new deer fence is proposed that will enclose the backyard. The wire fence with metal poles will have minimal impact on the wetlands, and the proposed design is consistent with deer mitigation measures on the adjacent property and in the area. The owners have recognized and addressed the concerns of the TAM and look forward to support of the zoning board such that they can move forward with this very important renovation to their home.
Okay, thank you, Lori.
Mhm.
Ed, do you want to start off? Any questions, Ed?
Well, I have a couple. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm concerned a little bit about the proposed fence, and this fence, you're looking for a 100-foot variance on the location of the fence, running it right up to the edge of the wetlands. I would think that the board and our consideration here would like to see that fence moved in a what would be a northerly direction, because we're not in the habit of granting 100-foot variance for a deer fence. It's that far back in the property. Also, I think that we can see where that shed is in those photos I had. You can see that area of the proposed wetland buffer that they have there, 25-foot wetland buffer. Now, there's a question about how much of that has been over-cleared to begin with. So we don't know how much that's a remediation or necessary replanting in its own sense. I think we can ask Tyler to comment on that.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those things are a concern to me at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Yeah, I would like to see when Tyler asked Tyler about the same thing.
I would like to see some point out the deer fencing, exactly where it's going to run from and to.
Lenny, Tyler, I beg your pardon. Tyler, Tyler, maybe I'll go ahead and swear you in for the evening, Tyler.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Tyler. Tyler, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Tyler.
Good evening.
Yeah, could you just take the screen and maybe you can zoom in and kind of walk us through? And then I just want to see if you could point out what the changes that Lori laid out when she was discussing this, so that we're all clear on what is not correct on this proposed survey.
Sure. So the previously the shed was to be relocated somewhere else. The shed is being removed from here now and then put underneath the proposed decking, which had existed previously. So essentially it's the two structures in the same footprint now, rather than having them in two separate locations. The fencing runs along here, along the side, and then right along the edge here, and then back along this property line. You can sort of see the faintly dashed line there. It's hard to see on the survey because the property line's right there, and then the edge of that proposed scenic easement's right there as well. But that's the fencing there that runs like that.
But wait a minute, your cursor is on the decking from what I see.
No, that's the arrow.
So it runs from the corner of the house. I don't know if you can see the cursor here. It runs, would that be north to the property line, then runs east out to the edge of this scenic easement, south, then along the edge of the scenic easement, all the way to the southern property line, and then runs towards the other edge of the house. So it's essentially along the two property lines, and then the
wetlands
is bordering the edge of the wetlands.
And in wetlands.
And Tyler, if you please, what is the allowable clearing line? Is there a general where this should be? The clearing should be limited to where this.
Sure. So this was the clearing. Well, this is 2016, but 2001. I'm sorry, but 2016 was roughly the same. I can bring that up as well. Let me pull up.
Wow. So it's very small. Wow. And now I can see it there. When you zoom, I see it. There's much more.
Right. So, I'm so sorry. This property here. So that's 2020.
Wow. Yeah.
2016, I believe, is pretty much the final year before it got cleared. And you can see it there. Obviously, significantly less clearing. Essentially, on the sanitary system is probably like the upper limits on the current survey. I think.
Yeah. If you go back to the current, if you would, that was very helpful.
So that's 2018. Obviously, more clearing, and then 2020 significantly more even.
Yeah.
Than that.
I'd like to just mention that my clients told me that they did not do this clearing. They bought the house like this.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, Tyler, would you go back to the survey, and then we can all know where we are, kind of, please. So it would be almost on the top of where it's a sanitary, on the top.
I would say probably somewhere around there is where the clearing was previously.
Right.
Let's see. Yeah. So let me jump into my presentation.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and then Laura, you can touch back. Okay, go ahead. Tyler.
So the project before the board has gone through some changes since the assessment was written, which we just went over. It's now to construct the 320 square foot deck with a shed relocated underneath that deck. And those are roughly 49 feet from the edge of wetlands. There's the basement entry to allow the non-conforming garden to remain 11.5 feet from the edge of wetlands, to allow the existing clearing to remain a few feet from the edge of wetlands with a small revegetation, and fencing to be reconstructed 0 feet from the edge of wetlands. The wetlands that surround the parcel are extensive and provide many of the environmental benefits typically associated with high-quality freshwater wetlands. These benefits include the provisions of habitat for wetland-dependent wildlife and diverse plant communities, the attenuation of floodwaters, and the removal of pollutants and nutrients prior to surface and groundwater recharge. These wetlands are part of a complex watershed that eventually discharges into the southern end of Lake Montauk, which in the past has been closed to shell fishing and as a bathing beach due to elevated levels of coliform bacteria that are indicators of water pollution. The soils throughout the Seaside Avenue area exhibit poor drainage, and the region is prone to a chronic flooding and drainage problem. The wetlands on the premises play an important role in the retention of the floodwaters that contribute to the poor drainage of the area, as well as the dissipation of pollutants and nutrients that can enter Rhinestein Park and then eventually Lake Montauk. The covered decking and shed is proposed in one of the least conforming locations available attached to the residence. Even relocating the proposed location to the northwest side of the existing residence rather than the northeast side would increase the setback to approximately 61 feet rather than the proposed 49.3 feet. And I'm certain that there could be a design where, there's an access from that side of the house and then the bulk of that decking is moved over, or even just shifting the decking so that the edge of it is right up against the doorway could give you at least a few feet. The board should discuss this decking in relation to the variance standards. The benefit of the proposed decking could be achieved through another method feasible by relocating it to a more conforming location. The variance is substantial, considering that there are alternative locations, and the proposed decking has the potential to have adverse impacts on the environmental conditions and could be achieved through other methods, namely a lesser variance. The impacts of structures are in the town code, but this structure has impacts on runoff, increased use of the property in close proximity to wetlands. These are things that have impacts on wetlands when you're less than half the required setback. I'll pull up the building plans just so the board can see what was being discussed as far as the entrance there. So this is the upper story, since the basement is technically a story on this property. So that's the exit.
Okay.
Even shifting that over to there would gain you a couple feet. So I guess the question is that the minimum variance necessary if it could be slightly better? As originally constructed, pull that back up. As originally constructed, the shed was built without building permits, very close to the edge of wetlands, requiring significant clearing within close proximity to wetlands. The relocation of the shed under the proposed decking is an improvement to the design of the project. Consolidating the footprint and limiting impacts from new structures is in line with proper natural resources planning. The structure could be located in a more conforming location. However, the consolidation of those structures reduces the impacts that those structures would have separately. The existing garden was also constructed without the benefit of building permit or any natural resources permitting. The garden is located in an extremely non-conforming location and is not an appropriate use in that location. The garden could easily be located elsewhere on the property, including closer to the residence or in the front yard. The garden also necessitated the required clearing variance, which is continued to be requested. As recently as the 2016 certificate of occupancy, the rear of the property was largely uncleared with only small yard space, which was cleared in order to construct the garden and shed, which are currently located in those areas. It is the planning department's opinion, excuse me, it is the planning department's opinion that the garden and the clearing do not meet the variance standards and should be removed and revegetated. The applicants have proposed to revegetate a small area, which was cleared, but the planning department recommends relocating the garden elsewhere in the parcel and revegetating more of the rear of the property in order to help protect the vegetative buffer to the wetlands, which helps limit the impacts of the additional development on the property. This is an area of extensive wetlands, which have an impact beyond the limits of the subject parcel, and the removal of vegetation reduces the quality of those wetlands and the capacity of the wetlands to mitigate impacts from runoff and storm events. The 25-foot buffer, which was proposed by the applicants, is not enough to reduce the impacts of the other clearing which has taken place for the garden. The property should be returned to the state it was in 2016, along with any additional structures the ZBA finds meet the variance standards. The deer fencing at the rear of the property is located up against the edge of the wetlands in one location and in close proximity across a large portion of its length. The location requires a 100-foot variance and should be relocated to along the edge of the clearing edge, which is approved by the ZBA at a minimum. This variance is substantial, could be achieved through relocating it to a more conforming location. It's an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood and is a self-created difficulty. Also has an adverse impact on the environmental conditions on the property by inhibiting the movement of wetland-dependent species. The ZBA should discuss if approving a lesser variance for a new location is more appropriate, or if deer fencing is appropriate at all on the property. A portion of the fencing along the lot lines is proposed, so the board may want to require the eastern portion be pulled back to the new clearing line if that is established by the board during this determination. This constrained property should be examined closely by the board. The proposed shed and decking could both be improved slightly with greater setbacks to the surrounding wetlands, and the garden and additional clearing are both significant variances, which were self-created by constructing without the benefit of a building permit. This area of Montauk is generally characterized by smaller construction constrained by an extensive wetland system. Limiting construction and clearing helps to decrease runoff and impacts on those wetlands. Being a small constrained lot, construction should be kept to an absolute minimum in order to limit the impacts that structures and clearing have on the surrounding wetlands. Additionally, as mitigation, the applicants have proposed a scenic easement over the wetlands at the rear of the parcel, which is something we had suggested and they added to their survey as well. Just to go over one thing that was brought up about the DEC wetlands.
All right, what was that, Tyler? I didn't hear that.
The last part about the scenic easement, that the applicants have included a scenic easement as part of the application, which is one of the suggestions that we had. These are the DEC wetland maps, which when we were discussing that, we were saying in general, the DEC wetlands in this area are mapped as Class 1 wetlands, but clearly the wetlands that are in this area here are obviously connected to the DEC wetlands. The entire area is interconnected wetlands. They're all high quality wetlands. They all impact the southern end of Lake Montauk. They're all part of this Montauk watershed, sub-watershed 7. These are high quality wetlands. And I think that's all the questions that I needed to address.
Okay, thank you, Tyler. Ed, do you want to start? Any questions for Tyler, Ed?
No, I guess one of my main concerns still is, and was brought up by board member Berger, is the establishment of this fence. The fence being run along the wetlands is just excessive. I don't know why we can't suggest to the applicant to draw that fence back some 30 feet or so in order to get a better buffer between there and the wetlands. The fence going there only reflects the overcleared area, really, and that's why it's run that far back. I think it should be moved. I would suggest it would be moved further to the north here and get it clear of some of the area. Give us a little more buffer to the wetlands. I
would think, Tyler, I don't know, when you were talking about bringing it back into, revegetating, it seems that just to bring it back to where it should be is somewhere around the 31-foot contour. You see where it crosses the eastern property line, the 31-foot contour? You're right, you're close. Yeah, right over there. Yep.
I think the building plans may even show an older clearing line. It's not quite what it was even in 2016, but I think it shows a...
Yeah.
So I still even a little more clearing on there, but that's what it was clearing even a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
That line was probably more like this at that point.
Yeah, but I'm thinking that 31-foot contour would leave you access to the sanitary system, but it seems like it should be around that kind of...
Something in that area. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, point that one more time. There, okay. Where
The
they
31 foot
where
is,
you were there, okay.
comes right across to the back of it. So slightly, I guess that would be west of where the, the edge of their line is, and then going across the property.
Yeah, cross perpendicular to the property line.
Right.
That's what I would
That's
think,
your
but
31 foot contour, yeah.
or follow the 31-foot contour. That's all I have. Any questions?
I have some questions, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
For Lori. Lori, on your January 26th memo, you state that they have proposed gutters and leaders for the covered deck to match existing with appropriate catch basin. My question is, it appears the existing don't run into dry wells.
Correct. And then that's what I mentioned that today, that we would be installing proper dry wells.
Okay. The basement, the basement access, the proposed basement access. Just hold for me a second. Are they planning to finish the basement?
Yes.
Are they adding a bedroom in the basement?
No.
Okay, because that obviously that would affect the sanitary design, I would imagine. I'm not sure.
Correct, but no, they're not.
Yeah, do we have basement plans there, Tyler?
You're looking at them, I think.
Yeah, the basement is essentially the first floor of the property. Because it's more than 4 feet.
It's a raised.
Yeah, it's the,
Oh, this is the basement.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
When did the owner purchase the property, Lori?
You know, I don't actually know the answer to that. I don't think I have a copy of their deed, unfortunately.
On here, Tyler, 2015?
Mr. Chair, I actually said that, and I can't find where I got that from. I made a mistake.
Okay.
So
I don't have that information.
Yeah, I was gonna ask Lori myself when it was to make sure I hadn't misstated it.
Yeah.
So Lori, so the statement that this present owner didn't clear it, we don't know that answer. We don't know if that's true or not. Just clarify that.
Well, he told me that he didn't, because at one point they were suggesting that he would actually have to revegetate onto the property next door, which is where the clearing encroaches to.
Right.
And he said, absolutely not. I didn't clear it and I'm not going to revegetate it.
I have August of 2016 as ownership, but I'm not 100% certain.
I have a building permit from 2019 that was issued to Leanne Hinchin. August of 2016. I do have the deed.
Okay, I think Tyler had a 2016 and 18 aerial with a show clearing, but I'm not sure how much took place between those two photos.
Yeah.
Lori, do you feel? I'm confused with the proposed buffer. If this property was cleared, do you feel the proposed buffer mitigates that overclearing?
Well, I think that the scenic easement is a significant mitigation. That's proposed. It's not an existing scenic easement. And then we're putting the wetlands buffer up against the scenic easement. I mean, what I'm hearing from the board is you don't think it's enough of a buffer. That's what I hear you saying. Okay, I hear you.
I don't mind saying that, Lori, myself, that, I would certainly be a lot more comfortable if that was that, as I said, that 31-foot contour line.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not even, that seems like what it should have been before it was illegally cleared by whoever did that, but.
Right.
So it's not much mitigation.
Okay. Well, why don't we hear from all the board members first?
Yeah.
But I'm asking to keep the hearing open so I can discuss your suggestions with the applicants and then get back to you with perhaps some revisions to our proposal.
We may be amenable to that. Board members, Terry, some comments?
Board said hearing. You didn't mean leave the hearing open, did you?
Yes, I did, because if we're to make revisions to the survey and the proposal, that have to be resubmitted and be a continuation of the same hearing.
Well, they could just leaving the written record open, though. It could be, Lori, if you didn't have to speak to explain it.
That's true.
So I think I know I'd be amenable to leaving the written record open for the time you need to do that consideration. Let's hear from other board members first. Terry, do you have any
Oh, yeah,
comments?
one more thing about the buffer. When you say the contour line, that would be going across the entire property, correct? From not north to south, but east to west, I guess it is on here.
Right.
It would continue across, right, from where.
I did. Tyler just did that nice red line.
Yeah, good. Okay, thank you, Tyler.
Board members, any comments, questions? Feelings about it?
Mr. Chair, I'm comfortable with holding the written record open to allow for a revised submission here.
Thanks, Tim. Roy? I'll poll you on that. Roy, are you okay with that, Roy?
Can we find out how much
I'm fine, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
how
Go
much-
ahead, Nancy Lynn. Nancy Lynn?
You don't want this completely open-ended? If Lori could perhaps, I mean,
Yeah.
we're going to still have to wait for the transcript, and then we generally post it and have 2 weeks. How much additional time past that would you need, Lori?
Okay, so right now, the surveyors are extremely backed up, and if we're going to make any changes, we're going to have to rely on Jamie Walsh. So I'm going to say 2 months to be safe.
Okay, 8 weeks after, so you would want closing the record 10 weeks after the transcript posts? Is that what you're asking for?
Yeah.
Yes, unless we can get it in sooner. Doesn't have to be that long.
Well, we can
No,
only
it's
keep it
10
open
Or
one.
10 weeks from today. She's saying 10
10
weeks from
weeks from-
today.
So if we do, we have others that we've done 8 weeks after the transcript posts.
Which is like 10 weeks from now.
Yeah.
So now why am I waiting for the transcript if we're going to perhaps revise the survey and just resubmit?
Because we have to have a time period in which if you want to do that and just say 10 weeks from today, we can do that because it'll come up.
Yeah, it'll be out there.
Yep. You want 10 weeks from today? Is that what you're looking?
That's fine. Yep.
And if you get it in much earlier and we have time to fit it in the agenda, we will, okay?
Perfect. That's what I was asking.
Chair, we can't do that.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's got to be noticed again. I'm sorry.
Yeah, are you asking?
No.
Okay, here's my question. Are we closing the record 10 weeks?
Oh,
from
yes, we are.
Or are we doing a recontinuation of a hearing?
I think we're closing the public hearing this evening and we're just leaving the written record open 10 weeks. That was
All
my,
right, so we don't need to schedule it again. Okay.
exactly. My apologies. Okay, board members, you all okay with that? Any other comments, questions? Okay, Ed, would you close this?
Wait,
for that
Chair,
motion?
let's see
Yes.
if we have any callers.
Oh, yes, I'm rushing too much. Thank you, Nancy Lynn. Mike, anything at LTV? Anyone waiting to speak?
No, Chair. The only caller is the applicant who's still there.
Okay. Lori, you all good? We'll go ahead and close this out then, Lori.
Okay, I'm assuming the applicant is not looking to speak.
I can't say that. Is he on the phone? If you want
No,
to.
Chair,
open that-
I can open that up with your permission.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, I'm going to unmute that now. The last 4 digits are 4412.
Good evening. Hello, you there?
Yes, good evening. It's Stuart Hinchin. My wife's the actual owner of the property. I'm the. So thank you to the chairman. Thank you for the board for
Yeah, let me ask you. I have to interrupt. Hold on a second, sir. I got to interrupt because if you're not an attorney, I have to swear you in. Okay.
I'm not.
Are you
I'm
an
certainly
attorney?
not an attorney.
Okay,
No.
then raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, let me also tell you, we spent a lot of time on your hearing this evening. It's nice to have you with us.
Yes.
So, but we've given this application a lot of time, so please make your remarks. We don't have to rehear anything, if you know what I mean. Please don't repeat what we've heard already, if you please.
No,
go ahead.
quite not. I'll counsel with Laurie, and I'll take her guidance on this, and we'll come back and we'll give you a written amendment to our application.
That sounds wonderful. That sounds great. Well, thank you for being with us this evening.
Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, Ed, do you want to go ahead and make a motion then, if you please, Johan?
Yes, can I just ask a question? What
Sure.
are we actually proposing 10 weeks from tonight?
For the written only, yes.
Written only, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'd like to make a motion for the application for 25 Seaside Avenue, Seaside Shores, Block 600, Lot Map 4, number 1518, in Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-32-4-37, to close the public hearing, but to keep open the written record until 10 weeks from today. Not Monday, that's it, 10 weeks from today.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Tim and Roy, you're on mute maybe, sorry.
Yeah, they both of them.
I'll concur.
And Roy, you there, Roy?
Oh, I concur. Man, that mute button was acting up on me.
Okay,
Yes, I
sorry.
concur.
Okay, and I concur, and Terry, I concur as well. Okay, okay, thank you. Thank you, Tyler, and Lori, and to the applicant who is here with us.
Thank you.
Take care, Lori. Take care.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Okay, we'll move along. Next on the agenda, we have a Georgia Pond Aquatic Harvester presentation. Nancy Lynn, do you want to give us a little kind of, for the public as well, kind of how this is a little unique to our ZBA hearings, if you please?
This is actually not a public hearing. This is a
Right.
presentation.
Yeah.
This is a permit that is under the authority of the town board. With the expertise that this board has on environmental issues and the nature of this application to the town board has asked that ZBA get a presentation on this application and provide recommendations to the town board as to the permit, and if there are any concerns or are there any conditions that this board would recommend to the town board. But the town board is the agent, or is the board that will be doing the secra on this. So we are just getting a presentation and a discussion on it. My understanding of how we're going to go forward is the board is going to hear the information today from the applicants, as well as comments from our planning department through Brian Frank. And the board actually is going to take a little time to digest all the written materials that they have received. And at next week's meeting, there will be a discussion, and that discussion will be presented then to the town board as this board's recommendation on it.
Nancy Lynn, thank you for summarizing that so well. It is, I appreciate that. So we will go ahead as
Excuse me,
Nancy
Chair.
Lynn.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to double check something with Nancy Lynn. I believe I have
Go
Jim
ahead.
Grimes in the waiting room, but the name
I
is
think
not-
so. He's not coming in under his name, but I
Right.
believe it's him. So
All
go
right.
ahead and let him in, and if it's not Jim, then we'll deal with whoever that is.
So I wonder, as far as the applicants, if there's a certain order that we will let them speak. I'm not sure if there's a certain order, or if we should hear from Jim first.
No.
I think Will is gonna start things off, I think.
I'll lead off and then I'll transition to Chris Gobler and Jim Grimes as necessary.
Okay, great. And we will, and again, try to keep your comments, we typically on these things do like 10 minutes and consultants 3-minute follow-up. And I know this is a lot more information, but I believe you have stated that you can keep these kind of short.
We're shooting for 15.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, good evening to you. Sir, I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. You're an attorney, is that correct?
No,
Chair, this is
Oh,
not-
this is Mr. Bowman. Yeah.
You don't need to swear anyone in.
Oh, it's a presentation. Thank you, Nancy Lynn. That's it. And I'm sorry, Mr. Bowman. Now I understand. I apologize. Go ahead, please.
No apologies necessary. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Will Bowman from Land Use Ecological Services, agent for the project. I would like to briefly summarize the Georgica Pond Harvester project for the ZBA. Could I share my screen? Are you seeing my screen okay?
I do.
Okay. Okay, again, we're going to make this presentation on behalf of the Friends of Georgica Pond, the East Hampton Town Trustees, and Stony Brook University. The board is very familiar with the water quality impacts that have adversely impacted Georgica Pond. So in response to harmful blue-green algae blooms in Georgica Pond in 2014 and 2015, the Friends of Georgica Pond utilized an aquatic weed harvester between 2016 and 2018 to selectively remove macroalgae and aquatic plant biomass from the water column as an experimental nutrient removal strategy. The harvester was also used to a limited extent in Georgica Cove in 2020. This pilot project was developed in collaboration with Stony Brook University. Chris Gobler from Stony Brook will speak after me and will describe the scientific rationale for this project. As we're aware, Georgica Pond exhibits a variety of significant water quality and habitat impairments, including macroalgae blooms, blue-green algae blooms, elevated levels of cyanotoxins, anoxia, and periodic fish kills. The objective of this pilot project is to minimize the intensity of the blue-green algae blooms within Georgica Pond and the resulting impacts to the ecological, recreational, and aesthetic benefits and services typically provided by Georgica Pond. I'll turn it over to Chris Gobler from Stony Brook at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you to board members for the opportunity to speak. What you're looking at here is the overgrowth of seaweeds, specifically a green alga known as Cladophora. And you don't need to be a scientist to know that when a water body takes on this look, something is amiss. And so what you're seeing here is the overgrowth of seaweeds all the way from the southernmost extent of Georgica Pond all the way to the northernmost extent. And the unfortunate part of you, as you look at them, they don't really look green. They look brown because what happens is they overgrow. Their growth starts around now. And by late summer, as the pond heats up, they begin to die. And that ushers an unfortunate cascade of events. Will, if you could advance the slide. In 2014 and 2015, what we saw is the pond looked like it had in the prior slide. And then within weeks, it looked like this. So this is the entrance to Georgica Cove from Georgica Pond. This is a toxic blue-green algae. In those years, the intensity of the blue-green algae in Georgica Pond was higher than any other water body on Long Island. And beyond the water, looking somewhat ghastly, there are lurking within that water unfortunate toxins that are a threat to human health. Next slide. For example, the two most common blue-green algae in Georgica Pond were Microcystis and Anabaena. We worry about these because they make the toxins, microcystin, a gastrointestinal toxin, and anatoxin, a neurotoxin. These are quite serious compounds. When they were first identified in the 20th century, scientists called them fast death factor and very fast death factor. Next slide. Coincident with these blooms were often the death of marine life or aquatic life. As you can see here, eels, fish of different sizes, and even birds. And so in some cases, the causes were obvious because of they occurred during low oxygen conditions. In other cases, are more mysterious. Next slide. And as scientists, we begin to worry about these blue-green algae because we're always finding out something new about them. So for example, this paper was published just 1 month ago. And what it identified was a brand new type of blue-green algae, also known as Cyanobacterium, and a brand new type of neurotoxin made by that blue-green algae, and revealed the fact that in a very cryptic manner, this blue-green algae actually grows on aquatic plants. So if you look at the diagram on the right, the blue-green algae grows in and amongst the pondweed within water bodies in the central United States. The toxin from that pondweed then accumulates through the food web, and in this case was shown to be resulting in the deaths of hundreds of eagles. We don't know if we have this blue-green algae in Georgia Pond. We don't know if we have this toxin in Georgia Pond. But we do know that cyanobacteria are prone to growing on the on seaweeds and on aquatic plants as shown here. So beyond the unfortunate manner in which the pond gets overgrown with the seaweeds, there are other threats that lurk, such as toxins. In addition, next slide, Will. We're fairly confident that these seaweeds, these macroalgae, usher in a cascade of events that lead to the blue-green algae. The idea being that we know Georgia Pond has an excessive amount of nutrients that causes the blue-green algae bloom and the overgrowth of aquatic plants. If left to their own, those plants die in the middle of the summer, release nutrients that then promote the blue-green algae and promote hypoxia. So that is the whole motivation for having the aquatic weed harvester, is to break this cycle. And Will, I think you're taking it from here.
Thanks, Chris. So under the pilot project, the aquatic plant harvester was used in 2016 and 2018 throughout Georgia Pond. And as I mentioned, it was used on a limited emergency basis in Georgia Cove in 2020. Necessary authorizations were obtained from the various town, village, and state regulatory agencies. Funding for the harvester operation was provided by Friends of Georgia Pond. During this pilot project, between 30,000 and 90,000 pounds of aquatic biomass, chiefly Sago Pondweed, and the Cladophora macroalgae were removed annually. The Friends and Town trustees seek authorization to continue annual aquatic harvesting for a 5-year period, commencing in 2021, to continue to mitigate the potential for these blue-green algae blooms. The methodology for the harvest would be consistent with that developed. For the harvest would be in the months of July to September. The highest intensity places for aquatic vegetation growth is in the coves, eel, and Georgia Cove, and in the tributary creeks at the northern reach of Georgia Pond. Those primary harvest areas are indicated by that the boxed cross-hatching. The harvesting would be the harvester, which is a 34-foot vessel, would be launched in at the upper end of Georgia Cove, at the Cove Hollow end of Cove Hollow Road. That is that's indicated in Site 4, which might be kind of cut off on this screen. When not in use, when not in operation, the vessel is moored somewhere near Site 1, near the Whittle property at 90 Briar Patch Road. As I mentioned, the harvester operations is concentrated in those coves and tributary creeks. The harvester biomass is transported onto the deck of the harvester by a conveyor belt. When the deck is filled with vegetation, the vegetation is unloaded on the shoreline at one of 5 locations throughout the pond. Sites that have primarily been used are the Georgia Cove, the Cove Hollow Road site, and the Route 27 rest area up at Site 5, To a lesser extent, Site 3 at the Creeks property has been used. But to a lesser extent, other sites were used for unloading. Site 3 down at the southwest corner of the pond. The aquatic vegetation is unloaded onto the shoreline. The aquatic vegetation is loaded onto a truck and then sent to the town transfer station, where it is weighed and composted. These various launching and unloading sites do not require any clearing or disturbance to natural vegetation or equipment access or the storage of harvested biomass. They're either on unvegetated shorelines or on areas of mowed lawns or mowed access paths. The aquatic plant and macroalgae composition of community composition has been found to change on a year-to-year basis. The dominant target species have been Sago Pondweed and the green macroalgae Cladophora vagabunda, and to a lesser extent, clasping leaf pondweed. Cladophora was dominant in 2014 and 2015. Sago Pondweed has been dominant in subsequent years. The photo on the upper right shows Sago in the conveyor belt. The lower is the Cladophora macroalgae. The harvester vessel is used to cut the biomass approximately 1 foot below the water surface to minimize disturbance to benthic communities and to maintain the desirable aquatic plant cover. That aquatic vegetation then continues to grow towards the water surface and is typically cut again in 10 to 14 days. This is proven to be an efficient means of removing the plant biomass while minimizing a bycatch. Other best management practices and mitigation measures are that there is also a bar on the harvester that prevents disturbance below in the bottom of the water column within 1 foot of the substrate and to the substrate. I don't mean to suggest that it's cut that low. As I mentioned, typically the vegetation is cut within 1 foot of the surface, but there's that extra prevention measure to prevent disturbance of the bottom. During the operation of the harvester, the trustees and friends and Stony Brook have found that a low approach speed reduces bycatch, presumably allowing fish to swim away. And accordingly, lower approach speeds will be used in the requested operation. If large animals are taken up with the harvester, they can be observed on the conveyor belt, things like snapping turtles or large fish, and then are returned to the pond manually. There is a no harvest area on the west side of Georgia Pond, which is used as a control site for the extensive biological monitoring. And during the 2016 and subsequent years, the Gobler and Peterson labs at Stony Brook have conducted an extensive amount of water quality and biological monitoring. I won't go through in great detail, but they've monitored those monitoring procedures would be transferred into the upcoming project with sampling of and quantifying the aquatic plant composition and macroalgae composition, both in the pond and in the harvested biomass. Quantifying the biomass removed and the nutrient quantities associated with that removal. They will continue to collect data on the quantification of bycatch, along with monitoring of the finfish, blue crab, and invertebrate communities in both harvest and non-harvest areas throughout the pond, and water quality monitoring via the telemetry buoy and collection of discrete water samples will continue. monitoring by the monitoring and project measurement that's been conducted by Stony Brook quantified that that the amount of macroalgae and aquatic plants removed was equivalent to 15 to 20% of the summer nitrogen and phosphorus loads to Georgia Pond. The physical removal of the biomass decreased the quantity of nutrients released and then were then available for uptake by blue-green algae. As a result, the blue-green algae concentrations observed in Georgia Pond were below the New York State DEC standard since the implementation of the harvester program. This is Stony Brook data showing blue-green algae concentrations from 2014 to 2020.
Is it all right to ask a question on that slide?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is this those low results is what they seem to be? Are they a result of the maintaining of the harvesting, or is the pond getting better over time as a result of harvesting? So is this a constant maintenance issue, or that we have to do year after year after year, or what's the end result?
So I'll just chime in and say that, the removal of over, getting close to 200,000 pounds of aquatic biomass over 3 years significantly reduced the nitrogen and phosphorus load to the system. And so we think that's part of it. It probably also reduced the background population of both the Cladophora and the Sago Pondweed. But frankly, we don't know. There's a lot of unknowns here. This is an approach that's not been widely used. And so we don't really know the tipping points. So that is to say, we do think that the activities that were done from 2016 to 2018 did promote this change and this phase shift. But what we don't know is, now that the system has not been harvested for 2 years, how quickly will it rebound and bounce back? We do know, and we'll talk about momentarily, that based on calculations that I did independently, and then an entirely separate study done by Suffolk County, that the nutrient loads for Georgia Pond need to be reduced by more than 60%. And we haven't come close to doing that yet. I think that the best explanation therefore is that we've taken a chunk out of the total nitrogen load to this system. We've reduced the overgrowth of these algae, but as plants, when left unattended, they will grow back.
Thank you.
That's great. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. While you were doing the harvester during those years, were there other efforts going on also that are in your more long-term management goals, such as pesticide reduction and lawn reduction along the properties?
Yes, and I think that's going to that's going to be covered in just a few slides from this one.
Okay.
Okay. In addition to the reduction in blue-green algae concentration, the removal of biomass decreased the reduction in dissolved oxygen that occurs due to the decomposition of the macroalgae and senescent plants towards the end of the summer. The Stony Brook labs observed that that the minimum dissolved oxygen concentration observed in harvester years was higher than in non-harvester years. Again, showing 2013 to 2020 with both the 3 harvester years, 3 major harvester years shown in 2016 through 2018.
Is anybody hearing him?
Yeah, is there a blip there?
Yeah, it looks like his computer froze.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the case. I think if he leaves, I'll bring him
Chris,
back.
can you just Chris go, but can you just finish it off, and then we want to move to Jim Grimes for a comment, and then we want to go to the Brian Frank from the planning department. So Chris, do you want to pinch hit for now?
I can. I just need to be given access to do. So someone has to kick him out, and then then I can jump in.
Right.
I'll take
Brian,
care of
can
that.
you do
Just
that?
1 second.
Oh, you did it.
Oh, you
Okay,
did,
great.
you did it. Great.
Mike.
Go ahead.
There you go.
Sorry. Let me just restart that real quick. Sorry.
There we go.
Okay. Okay, so Will had presented this, and so clearly in the years the harvester was used, it led to higher levels of oxygen compared to when it wasn't used. So on the harvester summary, you can see there's been all sorts of water quality and ecosystem impairments. Harvesting has led to a improvement in the ecological conditions of the pond. There's been very small amount of bycatch within the system and no evidence of the aquatic organisms being altered. And so we're looking to obtain a 5-year permit for to continue to use the harvester in order to address nutrient overloading in the system. But I just, the very last thing to emphasize, and I think that we had a comment already, I believe, about what else is being done. And so, you know, this is not the only thing being done. Frankly, the harvester is a Band-Aid because we know that, as is shown in this graph, that nitrogen is leading to more of these blue-green algae blooms. I had done a study back in 2015 looking at what's bringing all the nitrogen into the ecosystem. You can see the main culprit being wastewater. Suffolk County did a study subsequent to that and came to nearly the same conclusion and same percentages. And so the big initiative, therefore, has to be accelerating the removal of nitrogen from wastewater. That's the long-term solution. In good news, the groundwater travel time is only about 10 years at Georgia Pond. So if we can get everything upgraded all at once, then we're in great shape. But, you know, it takes time to get these systems upgraded. Georgia Pond has actually been more aggressive in upgrading these systems than I'd say almost any water body on the East End, with about 24 systems either in the ground, low nitrogen septic systems in the ground or being replaced soon. But, you know, it takes time to upgrade as many as we need to. So the idea of the harvester is to have that in place while an additional plan is being implemented. And that's specifically the Georgia Pond Water Quality Restoration Action Plan. This is a science-driven plan that includes, you know, the harvester is just a very small part of this plan. It has actions for opening of the pond, for addressing water quality, and for addressing nutrient reductions. And so we had a question about that. And here you can see all of the great progress that's being done beyond the harvester, sort of the long-term big picture. To, for example, upgrade at least 100 septic systems in the Cheer travel system within 5 years. As I mentioned, there's already 24 systems that are either in the ground or in the planning stages. There's a goal to reduce phosphorus use in 5 years by 75% within that management plan. And then there's great projects being designed to address runoff at the north end of the pond at the rest stop. And in fact, there was great news today that Friends of Georgia Pond got a grant from Suffolk County already to do this, sort of acting on their own. And I believe we learned today that the town CPF will also be contributing funds towards that. So a great evidence of a private-public partnership. And then there's been some ongoing educational programs about putting in natural buffers all along properties along Georgia Pond. So the big takeaway here is that the action here is we're looking to keep the harvester going to protect human health from these toxins, the blue-green algae, in the short term, while all these very important long-term projects are being implemented and executed. So then once they're done, the harvester won't be needed anymore.
So Chris, can I jump in? We have a lot to cover tonight, and thank you.
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah.
Done.
So I want to ask you, would you, with this board, we're going to move along, but this with Jim Grimes and then Brian Frank next. But would you be able to email to Kyle that your presentation, what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, the slide deck. Absolutely.
Just in case we want to refer back to that this week, and we have a lot of information that's been submitted that we will be rereading and refreshing ourselves. And as well, that long-term plan, I would like a copy of that if that's not a problem.
That's not a problem at all.
I'd be interested in looking at that. I'm sure board members would. And my one question to you and to you and all the applicants would be that if the town board did give you a 5-year long-term permit, would you be willing to check in obviously with the trustees, but with the town board annually and give some sort of an updated report? I mean, we don't need $1 million study, but I mean, you have all the gears going, I imagine, to do some testing and give the town board an annual report.
Yeah, I mean, and as Will had explained in his presentation, this is all being done with very close and careful monitoring. So, I don't know if he mentioned, but we have a GPS unit on the harvester, so we know exactly where it goes. And and so yes, it'd be in the years it operated, at the end of each year, we had drafted and submitted annual reports, and so which we can make available to you now, and we certainly would return to doing that were the harvester re-implemented.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Terry.
I'd like to see an annual report because I'm wondering if going forward with an annual review, if they could possibly quantify the benefit of the harvester and quantify that versus the other efforts that are being made to reduce the nitrogen and the phosphorus. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know what your reports have now, so I would like to
in fact, one of those. Terry, that's a great point. In fact, that is precisely what we had in the original reports. Is we because we have the nitrogen and phosphorus budgets for the pond, we were able to put this effort in the context of the total amount of nitrogen and phosphorus going in versus what we were able to remove.
I'm terribly sorry about that.
That's right. Well, we I don't know if you were able to listen, but Chris pinch hit it for you.
Yes, that's one way to get through a presentation.
Right.
But no, I was totally knocked off. So thanks, Chris. Let me share my screen again.
Yeah, actually, Will,
we're kind of wrapping. I think we're going to kind of wrap it up.
Okay.
Yeah, but thank you. I think because we have to keep moving. We're going to hear from Jim Grimes, and then we want to hear from Brian Frank, and then
sounds good.
We may come back with a question or two.
Great. My apologies, everyone.
That's all right. No problem at all. Let's go ahead and hear from Jim Grimes and the trustees. Jim, are you or Mike?
Hi, John. Thank you.
Will, maybe stop sharing the screen there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We'll give it back to.
There we go. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all. Good evening. Good evening, Jim.
Hi. Good evening, Chairman. This is Jim Grimes, Deputy Clerk of the East Hampton Town Trustees. As you all probably know, I've been on the board for several years. When I got on the board, it was just after the worst years that we had seen with the issues of harmful algal blooms. The issues, I think, peaked when one of the property owners' pet succumbed to basically blue-green algae poisoning. I've witnessed the benefits of the use of this algal harvester. Okay, there is real science behind this. In fact, the trustees have endorsed many projects along the same lines where the goals were to remove the excess nitrogen and phosphorus from ecosystems. This has occurred over in Aquatic. It's occurred in 3 Mile Harbor. This project is absolutely no different, other than the fact that the scope and scale of this project has resulted in something that is real and measurable in terms of a benefit to this pond. We can look at this thing a whole lot of ways. Okay, there's a lot of different projects going on at any one time along Georgia Pond. The trustees have been adamant about vegetated buffers. Friends of Georgia have been very, very active in getting people to, they're doing missionary work daily to get people to replace their septic systems. We've been pushing people to try and eliminate some of the irrigation. When you talk about fertilizers, there are no high phosphorus fertilizers available on Long Island anymore. They were taken off the market several years ago. When you buy a lawn fertilizer nowadays, you'll notice that middle number in the analysis is typically 0. And it was for the simple fact that we've recognized this. But I think what this harvester represents, if you're on a ship and the ship is sinking, does the ship need to get patched? You're damn right the ship needs to be patched, but do you stop bailing when there isn't time? And that's what this harvester does. It is an interim exercise and an interim treatment of a symptom, and it has worked, and it has worked well. And I would hope that this board will endorse the use of this policy. And Teresa, to your point, every year we get a report from Chris Gobler. Chris Gobler reports that report to the Georgia Pond Steering Committee, which we have several members of the town board typically sit in on those meetings, as well as members from the East Hampton Village. And I'm just going to end by asking you guys to please consider this. It's been dragging for an enormous amount of time.
Okay, thanks for joining us, Jim. Let's go ahead to Brian Frank next. Brian, good evening, Brian. I think you're muted still, Brian. Brian, can you hear us there? Yeah.
Sorry, it took a moment to unmute. I apologize.
Yeah, good evening, Brian.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, and everybody who's here for this presentation. Brian Frank, Chief Environmental Analyst with the Planning Department. And I think the question here ultimately is, this application started as an experiment, and most experiments improve and get refined over time. And I think that's really the underlying question with this project is, can this effort be improved, or is it perfect just the way it is? The application is basically the way the application has been proposed. The operation of the harvester has been proposed for up to 12 weeks, up to 7.5 hours a day, 5 days a week from July through September. That's 450 hours of operation. I think everybody recognizes the importance of Georgia Pond. Nobody wants to see algal blooms. Dr. Gobler did an excellent job. Probably could have gone on a lot longer about the havoc that's wreaked ecologically as a result of harmful algal blooms, and even the public health dangers that are associated, because we're not just talking about fish, we're talking about wildlife, we're talking about domestic animals, we're talking about even human health and commercially important species. Sadly, the problems facing Georgia are not unique. Harmful algal blooms have proliferated for the last decade, and again, Chris is Dr. Gobler is widely regarded as a water quality expert and has been studying the organisms that contribute to this for a long time. But I think there's a pretty broad consensus that a lot of water bodies have reached a tipping point as a result of nutrient enrichment, largely as a result of human activities, whether they're point source or non-point source pollution. We have seen a proliferation of harmful algal blooms nationwide. It doesn't matter whether they're as small as Wainscott Pond or as large as Lake Erie. It doesn't matter whether they're tidal waters or fresh waters or estuarine waters. the problem is really widespread. And the importance of nutrient input reduction can't be overemphasized here. It's much more sustainable to reduce the pollution, the nutrients associated with it, from getting into these water bodies than to try to mine it out of it. And along those lines, the last time I looked, there were still some waterfront septic systems that lack septic tanks that were in the groundwater table for at least part of the year. And all of the septic upgrades in Georgica's watersheds are significant. They should all be applauded. But we should also recognize that all septic systems do not contribute to the problem equally. And those systems that lack a tank, that are directly in groundwater or that are close to wetlands or surface water, have a disproportionate contribution to the water quality problem in the pond. And those are the priority ones to get upgraded, the ones that haven't been so far. We've been talking a little bit about plants, and I want to do so a little bit more. There are basically three target species associated with the harvester. One is a macroalgae, that's the Cladophora that Chris was referencing, and the other two are vascular plants. That's the Sago Pondweed and the clasping leaf pondweed. And those two species are species of submerged aquatic vegetation. If that term sounds familiar to you, you may be familiar with SAVs, as they're called, from eelgrass, which is without question our most famous submerged aquatic plant. It's a keystone species in marine systems, and it's a vascular plant. And by that, I mean it's a true plant. It has a life cycle very similar to trees, grasses, and other terrestrial flowering plants that you have in your yard or the woods around you. All three species are native. Cladophora and the two Ptamogetans are all native. I think it's pretty safe to say that a algal mat, like the ones you saw in Will Bowman's and Chris Gobler's photo, that level of excess plant material is not natural, in addition to the aesthetics, the aesthetic impact to it. It also does have ecological impacts. It impedes water circulation currents. It shades submerged aquatic vegetation. And as Chris mentioned, it's a bit of a double whammy, because as it dies and decomposes, it consumes the oxygen, which depletes the oxygen in the water body, stressing wildlife and sometimes killing it. And then as it decomposes, it frees up, the decaying plant material frees up nutrients that can fuel the next algal bloom. So it's pretty reasonable to suggest that the removal of the Cladophora is unlikely to have any significant adverse impact, and is actually rationally beneficial to reduce that unnaturally large biomass. There are still some questions about the other two species. Like eelgrass, both the clasping leaf pondweed and especially the sago pondweed are described as extremely high-value native vascular plants. They have a lot of the same benefits that eelgrass provides in terms of food source, in terms of cover and nursery area for developing wildlife. They put oxygen into the water column. Some species, I don't know about sago and clasping leaf in particular, but they also, but other marine vascular plants buffer water bodies from acidification and sequester carbon in the growth of the plants. Sago has been described as the most important aquatic plant for waterfowl in North America. Every part of the plant, from the flowers down to the tubers, are edible by one species or another of waterfowl, and it's an important overwintering source. And if it's an important overwintering source, it's unlikely that it is decomposing, that it's breaking down in the summer when the warm water temperatures and already low levels of oxygen are especially vulnerable to additional stress from an algal bloom. Dr. Gobler is one of the most well-known and respected authorities on microalgae and on water quality. Nobody associated with this project is an expert on aquatic ecology. I'm certainly not an expert on aquatic ecology. You do have a large volume of information in the file, but there are still some significant questions about this application. As I mentioned, this started as an experiment. If they hit it right on the head the first time around, that's pretty rare for experiments. Experiments benefit from refinement, they benefit from collaboration, and they benefit from peer review. It's likely that, minds much better than mine could contribute to the effectiveness and the efficiency of something like this project, and help identify any potential adverse impacts. There are a couple of things that we should keep in mind. We've made a lot of mistakes as a society, environmentally, doing what we thought was the right thing at the time, only to learn years later that there was harm associated with it. And we have to recognize that we don't know what we don't know. And this is a pioneering project. It is, as far as I know, the only one of its kind. I haven't been able to find a project like this anywhere in the country. That doesn't mean that that one doesn't exist, but I haven't found one like it. Mechanical harvesting is used as a control method for aquatic plants. It is most often used to remove very aggressive non-native aquatic plants like Eurasian milfoil, kabamba, fanwort, hydrilla, and it's usually used for short durations to improve recreational uses of a water body. So there are still questions about the application, whether it can be improved. Are the native pondweeds contributing to the harmful algal blooms in Georgica Pond? If they're not, what is the impact of reducing the quantity of them in Georgica? Are there better ways that the Cladophora could be removed? Again, are the pondweeds bycatch, or are they target species that are contributing to the problem? It's a pretty significant reduction, as has been mentioned here. It's in 2018, it was 93,000 pounds of wet weight, about 27,000 pounds of dry weight, since, not surprisingly, aquatic plants have a very high water content. These are questions that haven't been answered, and that need to be answered. And I don't think that you necessarily, the planning department has not, would not recommend an environmental impact statement for this project for two important reasons. One, I'm not sure that the information exists out there to be synthesized and put into an EIS to help guide the decision-making on this application. And two, there is somewhat of a crisis in Georgica Pond, and it does warrant maybe some level of aggression to try to control it. But that doesn't mean that the project is perfect the way it is and should proceed for 5 years as it's gone on so far. This project is different from the ones that were Jim referenced in 3 Mile and Aquatic, where those are growing seaweeds. The sugar kelp in one in particular They're growing them to uptake the nutrient out of the water column. They're not harvesting a native indigenous population to reduce the biomass.
Brian, could I jump in for a second? It's John Whelan. Could I jump in for a second, please? Could I just ask you in your presentation here, just so we're clear, so I'm clear, and maybe the board is clear. First of all, a couple of quick questions. I imagine you would agree with me that if, well, first of all, I'll say it seems obvious that you would appreciate, a lot of feedback, a lot of data, and just as you say, this is sort of an experiment, and as much information that can be gleaned with regard to all of your comments that I won't try to repeat, but I know you. So it's obvious that you appreciate that, and teamwork and working and sharing information. And if this were approved by the town board, I imagine you'd agree with my concern earlier, my questions about getting annual data update and having you, the planning department, probably mostly specifically you, reviewing that with regard to for the town and for the town board. But I'm wondering, besides all of that, if you were kind of in charge here, what would you like to see happen? Just so I'm clear. I mean, this maybe is doing, as Dr. Gobler said, maybe it's doing in some of the written data, I believe maybe 15 to 20% of the nitrogen was affected, or this, helped out in that sense. But if you were kind of running the show here, what would you like to see happen? Would it be not 5 days a week, or would it be not? So could you just comment on what you would like to see happen here, Brian?
Well, I can't answer the question about duration, but that is a question. Mm-hmm. Can the benefits of this project be achieved? Can a harmful algal bloom be stayed with a shorter duration of operation? I think you really need input by real limnologists or aquatic ecologists that have a far greater level of expertise and objectivity. I can't tell you the level of scrutiny that I've had the opportunity to observe just as an observer, not as a participant, because I'm not an expert on the subject of eelgrass transplants. Should we be transplanting eelgrass from southern warmer waters up on Long Island here as our water bodies get warmer, because of the importance of eelgrass, and obviously eelgrass from southern waters is adapted to warmer water temperature. The level of interdisciplinary scrutiny that receives as colleagues discuss the pros and cons is pretty impressive. And I think that's the type of peer review that a project like this, again, the only one of its kind that I know of, would benefit from.
Yeah.
Lastly, one position I do have that I do have some knowledge about, and that's the site in the southwest corner of Georgia Pond is not really suited for vehicular traffic. I'm familiar with the properties down there. I'm familiar with the wetlands. Running a pickup truck through that through those wetlands is going to contribute to soil compaction. It's going to result in a proliferation of Phragmites, which you've heard from other applicants. There are efforts to reduce in other places of the pond, and in my opinion, I feel confident saying that eliminating that access is a bit of a, is appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just jump in quickly on that point, and those southwestern access points have not been used significantly, so they can be abandoned in light of the proximity to the wetlands. It is accessed through a road or through a mowed lawn, but they can be those two can be abandoned.
William, can I ask to just throw this thing in per Brian's comments and all that? It seems like you all and the Friends of Georgia are obviously very interested in the data, especially Dr. Gobler's work. And it seems like I have the feeling you're all very cooperative. Would you all be interested if this were approved by the town board to work with both the planning department, namely Brian Frank as maybe the representative there, and with an aquacultural expert, bringing someone else in, is just to work on that data annually and answer maybe some of Brian's concerns about the other aspects here. Does that make sense?
Well, I can say it does make sense, and I just want to just emphasize that even over the years we were using this, this has been used in a framework I would call adaptive management, right? And so that is each year, not only are we just writing a report, but we're changing the way the harvester is used to maximize what I'd call bioextraction and also to minimize harm. So, you know, we're down to the point now where it's only the top foot of the pondweed being removed. So we're not yanking it out. It stays in there as a habitat. You can think of it as just mowing the very top of the lawn. And I'll also emphasize that it does die off. If left to its own devices, it naturally dies off and is completely gone by September. And that, you know, and then when that happens, all the nutrients that's extracted have gone back into the water. But anyway, answer your question. Yes, be very happy.
I'm sorry, Chris, was that, I don't mean to interrupt you, but is that the Cladophora you're talking about, or?
No, that's the pondweed. That's the pondweed. When we've done surveys in the fall, it's all gone by the time we get to like even in 2019 and 2020 when there was no harvester. It naturally dies off. It seemingly doesn't like the summer heat. You know, which is saying then that if you know, by removing, you're at least getting some of the material out. So yeah, I mean, the whole philosophy behind what we've been doing has been what I would call adaptive management. This was done on a hypothesis. It seemed to work, and therefore it was worth doing. Each year we review the results. We make adjustments in order to maximize benefit and minimize harm. You know, this is done under the premise of do no harm first. And yeah, I think we all would be totally open to having this be an annual review. And then during which point in time, I think any stakeholder would be welcome to, you know, offer their opinion and advice. And, you know, we all are working towards the same end. We want clean water. We want healthy habitats. And so I think, you know, the more people we have contributing to that conversation, the better.
Okay, thank you. Board members, any final comments?
I'd like to reiterate that the reports already exist from the 3 years that they use the harvester. So if we could get a copy of that report or send it to Brian and he could pass it on.
You do have them. Everything, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you have everything that was referenced in tonight's presentation by the applicants, except for the slides from the PowerPoint.
Yeah,
you have the draft restoration plan. You have the annual harvest. I'm 99% sure that you have everything. So we can check on that if you want.
I think you're correct, Brian, except for the PowerPoint we heard this evening. But otherwise, I believe I agree with you on that.
I don't recall seeing a report, though, about the adaptive management that Dr. Gobler was talking about.
Oh, yeah, from the Friends of Georgia that he's going to send us.
Yeah. That's what I'd like to see.
Right.
Yeah, the other stuff I think we have pretty much.
Right.
Oh, correct me if I'm wrong, but what's out there, what's in the file are the annual reports from 2016, 17, and 18.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I think what Terry's referring to is the Friends of Georgia, their plan, their long-term plan.
No, I think we have that actually too.
Okay.
Or something from them about a long-term plan.
Okay. Board members, anything else? Otherwise, I think we'll wrap it up here. Board members, you all good? I'll take that as a yes.
No, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to say that I think it's a really ambitious and interesting project. I agree with some of the concerns that have been voiced by Brian Frank that what additional damage might be taking place to this complex ecosystem that we're not able to anticipate.
Yeah.
So I think that monitoring over a long period of time is really important. But I also know in their project narrative, they discuss other ways in which to try to mitigate the problems in the pond. And one of them is they point out that there are 300 property owners within the 2-year groundwater travel time, and that they're pushing as best they can. And then Jimmy Grimes said that they're doing missionary work there. They're working really hard. I believe all of that, but I do think that any effort to do something with the pond, we have to look at the larger picture than just this. And that's been said by Dr. Gobler. Everyone said it. I'm not disagreeing. I just think that we start talking about 300 properties and 33 systems are in place. There's a lot of work ahead there. And I guess that the Homeowners Association is doing something about that and pushing. And it may take some time, as has been said, but this is a difficult project long-term to think there'll be a success ratio unless some other things happen other than breaking the pond. That's my
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Ed. Completely agree with those comments. Anyone else, board member, any other board members?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, and we'll be discussing this next week. For all of those joining us, thank you for being here tonight. And again, we'll be discussing this, and you can enjoy the show next week and hear our comments. And thank you very much for being here, and have a good evening, you all. And we will move on with our agenda.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Sean.
Take care. Okay. Let's see, as far as the work session, board members, we can jump right down to D for other decisions. First of all, we're going to talk about, why don't we start off, before we go to Euclid. We have two sort of walk-ons from late this afternoon. One would be the 80 South Essex that we may or may not be ready to discuss. And the other is a De Niro application in Montauk. And let's see, Brian is still with us.
Yes.
Brian, would you go ahead and introduce that for us, please? The De Niro application there.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, as you know, I don't have the document open right now.
Okay, I can open mine up. That's right. But maybe you can just go ahead, Nancy Lynn. Go ahead, Nancy Lynn.
This is just a motion to have it on for rehearing.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's Terry is the one who's bringing it to the board because it has to be made by a board.
Yes, thank you. Let's go right to Terry. Thank you, Brian. If you would. Thanks, Terry.
Yeah, Brian forwarded the documents to me this afternoon.
And to the board as well. Yeah.
And I took a look at them, and then I did forward them all on to all the other board members so they would have a copy to view.
Yes, thank you.
And I do want to make a motion to, what do I make a motion for? To give a rehearing? What's the verbiage?
Yes.
Okay.
You make a motion to have this matter reheard.
Have it reheard. Okay, that sounds good. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and make that. So I would like to make a motion for De Niro at 242 Old Montauk Highway in Montauk, tax map 300-087-03-06 to allow a hearing for the application.
I'll second that.
I concur.
And I concur.
And I concur as well. Okay, thank you, Terry. Terry, we also have in your district, I believe this was your file, as we spoke earlier, the 80 South Essex Street LLC, the rehearing modification for that.
Yeah.
Are you ready to make that motion, Terry, or not? What do you?
I don't have it in front of me. Did Tyler?
Yeah, I can.
Was it on for today?
You want to hold it off till next week on that one?
Yeah, is there a big deal to do that? I prefer that, I think.
I don't think so, Nancy Lynn. Would you?
No, it just will mean that it can't be scheduled until it comes up for a rehearing. So we can put it on the schedule next week, and then we'll have to hold off on giving it a rehearing date.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Terry. And now we have the 92 South Euclid Avenue LLC. I'll read this in, pardon me, in Montauk tax map number 300-49-1-15. A request has been received from the applicant's agent to keep the record open for an additional 8 weeks after the transcript of the meeting has posted to address concerns raised by the board during the public hearing. And Terry, I believe this was your project, correct? Your application?
Yeah, this was too. And I have no problem with giving them the extra time that they want. Let them take a good look at it based on the hearing that we had.
Okay, thank you. Council, do we need a motion for that?
Does it need a motion for the record or
just?
Yes, you do, because there was a motion to close the record at a certain time. So you need a motion to change when the record will close.
Okay.
Thanks, Nancy. Thank you. Terry?
It would be 8 weeks after the trans. Okay. Yes, I'd like to make a motion then for the project at 92 South Euclid Avenue, tax map 300-49-1-15, to leave the written record open until, for an additional 8 weeks after the transcript has been received. An additional, so that would be for 10 weeks after the transcript is received. Yes?
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
I concur.
I believe their request is that
it's additional.
Leave it open for additional 8 weeks after the transcript is posted. I believe it's 8 weeks after the transcript is posted. I know it says additional.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think
he said additional, so I added it to the 2.
2 weeks, yeah. Okay.
8 weeks after.
So you want to revise that? Go ahead, Terry.
Modify that motion then to state that the record will be left open for 8 weeks after the transcript has posted to the website.
I'll second it again.
Concur.
Concur.
And I concur as well. Thanks, Terry. Okay, we'll move along here now. Next, we'll skip down to item F, extensions of time. We have Robert Woolcott at 42 Oyster Shores Road, East Hampton, tax map number 300-92-6-23.3. And I'll leave this up to Eleni and to Board Member Brenneman. If you all, or Eleni, do you want to just introduce this for us, if you would, please?
Sure, I'll just share my screen. Let me just pull it up. It's the same survey that we were looking at earlier.
Yeah.
So this is a extension of time for the deck. They actually received a NRSP in 1986 for additions to the residence and including this wood deck, but they never got a building permit for the deck at the time. There was a certificate of occupancy issued in 1988, and it did show a deck on it. However, since they never got a building permit for the deck, the building department required them to get the building permit, which they did in 2016. However, they can't close it out without extending the NRSP from 1986. So that's why this is in front of the board now for an extension of time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Eleni. Tim, do you want to pick it up and touch back on that platform, if you would, please?
Sure. So I think that we had a conversation with the applicants where they seem to be agreeable to remove the platform. The problem is that in order for them to get a CO, they're going to have to either get a variance or remove the platform. They indicated a willingness to remove it and further to revegetate those wetlands. So I don't know how the board wants to do this at this point. Do we want to approve subject to, or how would we suggest approaching this?
Well, the board can't do a subject to. So either you do an extension or you don't, or you wait to do the extension. But if you do an extension, you can't add new conditions.
So may we table this, Nancy Lynn?
Yes, you can
Is that
table
the easiest way?
And you could, and I believe how it was left was when they have it ready,
yeah,
and have it removed, that they can let Kyle know and he can put it back on.
Sound good to you, Tim?
Send the letter? Can we send the form letter to them?
Yes.
Sure.
The form letter is fine, yeah.
Sure.
It does. Do we need a motion to do that, or we just agree to hold it open here?
You could just agree to hold it open. Since you're not actually making a decision on the application, there's no need for a motion.
I'm comfortable with that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. I'll poll the board. Roy,
Yes, I'm comfortable.
Terry,
Yes.
and Ed?
Yes, I'm fine with it.
I am as well. Okay, thank you all. Thank you, Tim, and thank you, Eleni. Next, we'll go on to the meeting minutes, draft minutes for April 13th, 2021. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the Zoning Board of Appeals for April 13th, 2021.
Concur.
And I concur as well. Thank you, Tim. Next, we'll go on to resolutions. I'm going to abstain from, I'll turn off my video here. Vice Chair Deline, will you take over on the first resolution, please?
Sure. The first resolution is Ronald Louder at 118 Beach Lane, Wainscott, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-202-02-7. And I think Member Brenneman had this application. Tim, you want to take it?
Yeah, I do, and I'm pulling it up as I'm speaking, but certainly the board would remember this application. It's in a very challenged area environmentally. However, we were unanimous in our approval of the structure and the septic system. We decided to not approve the walkway that was presented, and also decided that we would prefer to see a separate application for the work that was being required by the DEC on strands of invasives. So with that, I would make a motion to, in the matter of Ronald Lauder at Suffolk County Tax Map 300-202-2-7, to approve the determination as written.
I'll second it.
I concur.
I concur as well. Thank you. Chairman can jump back in.
Okay, thank you, Roy. Okay, we'll move on. Next, we have Lawrence Jacobs at 1074 Springs Fireplace Road in Springs, tax map number 300-39-14-13.1. And Roy, this is in your district, if you would, please.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, if you remember, board members, this was a application where there was an error in the setback, side yard setback, and the building department caught the error and came to us and we approved it. So therefore, I make a motion to approve the application of Lawrence Jacobs, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-39-14-13.1.
I'll second.
I concur.
And I concur as well. Thank you, Roy. Next, we have Rosemary Real Estate EH LLC at 115 Waters Edge Road in Springs, tax map number 300-83-7-3. And Roy, once again, it's in your district, please, if you would.
Yes, and I'm pull it up. But yeah, this was the application where the house was on the edge of the bluff. The applicant, from the concern of the planning department and the board, moved the house back into a more conforming location. And the board also limited the future expansion on the water side of the house to no more expansion. So with that, I make the motion to approve the application of Rosemary Real Estate, 115 Waters Edge Springs, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-83-7-3.
And you accept the determination as written?
As written.
As written, yes, thank you. That's all.
I second.
I concur.
And I concur as well. Ed concurred, right? I'm sure.
I didn't hear.
I don't vote.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Yep. Okay.
It was pre-ed, yeah.
Yep. That might be the last one.
That's the last pre-ed we have.
The last pre-ed we have. Okay, here we go. Neil and Anita Pilzer at 56 3 Mile Harbor Drive, East Hampton, tax map number 300-56-5-6. And Tim, this is in your district, I believe, Tim?
Yes, and this was essentially an amendment, a modification of a previous a decision that we had made, and it came back to us because of some issues associated with the low nitrogen sanitary system, and also a request from the DEC from a coverage standpoint. And so we all concurred on this. And so in the matter of Neil and Anita Pilzer, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-56-5-6, I make a motion to accept the determination as written.
Second.
Concur.
Concur.
And I concur. Thank you, Tim. Okay, we have next Arthur Dunham at 26 Talmadge Lane, East Hampton, tax map number 300-187-2-9.1 and 300-301-4-1-12. And Tim, once again, if you would.
Sure. The board will remember that this one is the property that had the unique situation of half of it being in the town and the other half being in the village. This was a 280 square foot artist studio above an existing garage. There was a need for a 2-foot pyramid on this. We heard from the applicant a willingness to mitigate it with planting of trees. We heard back from the impacted neighbor, and ultimately, I believe 4 of us concurred on this decision with dissent of member Berger. And so I would make the motion in the matter of Arthur Dunham, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-187-2-9.1 and 301-4-1-12 to accept the determination as written.
Second.
I concur.
I concur.
And I concur as well. Thank you, Tim. Okay, finally, we have here Joseph Scalia at 94 Runnymede Drive in Springs, tax map number 300-23-4-12. And this is in Vice Chair Delene's district. Roy, if you would, please.
Yes, this is an application that had a few variances that the board had no problem with. They were considered minor, but the most concerning part of this application was the stairs down to the beach along the bluff. There were 2 different, the survey and the engineer's drawing didn't coincide. So I did check, council did have it right. I checked, make sure the drawings were listed right, and they were, because the Drew Bennett drawings were to prevail on that. So, and we were also concerned with the vegetation down at the bottom of the at the bluff, at the bulkhead. So with that, I make a motion to accept the application of to approve the application of Joseph Scalia 94 as written, of Joseph Scalia 94 Runnymede Drive, Springs, Suffolk tax map number 300-023-04-1.12.
Second.
I concur.
Concur.
And I concur as well. Thank you, Roy. Council, anything else on your end?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, we made it. Thank you, board members. Thank you, planning department, Brian, Tyler, Eleni, and Mike at LTV. Have a good evening. Kyle, of course.
Kyle, yeah.
Don't forget Kyle.
Forget that.
Have a good evening, everyone.
We need a motion.
Oh, yes, we do. Thank you. I was just gonna leave, Tim, let you guys handle that.
Therefore, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to close the hearing of the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals for Tuesday, April 27th at 9:13 p.m.
Second.
Concur.
Concur.
And I concur. Thanks, you all. Thanks, Roy.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Take care.
Good night, everybody.